It sounds even better that way. I think I like it with the doubled sound.
That's even what's tolerable.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome. You can't have that sound. Not what I wanted to start playing.
What is happening?
It played when I hit play. It played this instead of the thing I wanted it to play. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this show. We're starting a little bit late. We have a very special guest for you tonight. You might have noticed this is the gun show, and the thumbnail is just guns on more guns. So we got Go Big Boy or Go Home, who is already hanging out in the chat here. We're going to be shooting the link very, very soon, and he's going to be our special guest for the night. So we're going to talk about guns, and more guns. We are hoping to get good old Hadass on in just a little bit, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a night. We're gonna talk about stuff, and I'm very excited to do it. So guys, if you'd like to take a look at Jeff's Corona beard today, he trimmed it yesterday, so we got some nice shape going on, some nice growth going on. If you haven't gotten a chance to rate this beard yet, go ahead and let us know in the chat what you think of the Corona beard. We're keeping very close tabs on that. Thanks to everyone last night who helped make this a retarded fun stream.
It was your best stream ever that I've been a part of.
Well, you weren't around for some of the old streams. They used to get pretty special. Some people here in the chat can probably tell you. Pretty special indeed. Pretty special indeed. If you are just joining us, also make sure you press the like button. Ain't nothing like a good oppression, and we approve of that type of life on this channel. So, I just want to get to our guest. I'm really excited to have this guy on here. He runs a channel called Go Big Boy or Go Home. His name is Sean, as you all find out really soon. And so we're going to talk some guns. We want to talk guns in relation to just guns and how fun they are. Or talk guns in relation to, the ongoing conversations about guns we're always having in this country. We're talking about guns in the time of coronavirus. And then we're going to find out, some other fun things about our guest and have just a good old time. So,
yeehaw!
Yeah, just like that. So, Go Big Boy or Go Home. Sean, if you're watching over there still, the link is coming to you right now. I'm going to shoot the link over to Hadass, the Power Walker now, right? Isn't that our new thing? Power Walking Hadass, something like that. Boom. I'll just let her know she's got the link. Cool beans. And so I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be an experience. That Nintendo guy says, time to use my $2 for good. All hail Jesse. Thank you, that Nintendo guy.
Hail Jesse.
I appreciate your $2. I appreciate the super chat. That will be used for good or evil, but like evil in the name of good.
You should redefine what you consider good.
Good by my standards. So there you go. James Baker says, I want to be a power walker now. I think I'll just change my name to that. James Power Walker. It's powerful. It's not as powerful as Wiener Walker. I think Luke Wiener Walker is pretty darn powerful. Look, Ship Pancake was just grooming Lando, and he was just taking it and not being a bitch about it.
Ship Pancake.
I love you, Ship Pancake. He slept on my foot last night. It was cute.
No, we did not watch The Warriors yet, Greg. I've seen it countless times.
I've never.
One day, Jesse will watch it.
One day. I have not seen it yet, but I will. Is Power Walker like a Power Ranger ripoff? That would be so funny. The Power Walkers! They're just really
Mo Walker!
Good at walking. Oh, we've got a Sean. It looks like he's got a friend. All right. Hello. Welcome. Let me fix this.
Hello.
Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. All right, so we are getting a little playback on your end. Do you have a pair of headphones you could plug in? Because that'll help. And
sorry about the feedback. Give me a sec here. Let me see if I can do some headphones.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
he's a buff. Oh.
Yeah. Sorry about the feedback. Give me a sec here. Let me see if I can do some headphones.
Yeah, gonna dance to this song in my head now.
All right, there we go.
Beautiful. All right, Sean, welcome to Mindless Entertainment. Welcome to being on the channel.
Whoa.
Sean, Jeff, Jesse, Sean, Jeff, Jesse. Who is your pupper?
I'm Jeff. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Who is your pupper do?
That's Elsa. I was actually going to show off. She's got a Corona beard too. So.
Oh, Elsa. Well, hopefully she'll swing back over and we can see more of her pretty little face.
Yeah, the second I let her down, she just ran off.
Of course, she was like, "No, Dad, no!" To get a lovely little glimpse of her. So I got excited as soon as I saw her. Hey, Greg Kirk is Wiener Dog. So I don't know if you've been watching the end of the streams. We've been doing the Star Wars Mad Libs, but I wonder if Luke Wiener Walker owns a Wiener Dog.
Oh, I've been watching that. Yeah, I kind of wanted to grab Elsa too because I know super fan Adam Shawhan has a clan of Wiener dogs.
Yeah,
nice.
So,
but we will get to those later too if you want. So that'll be fun. Oh, Beth Degu comes with a super sticker, a unicorn from Beth. Thank you, Beth. Thank you for the unicorn. And that's all. Was Elsa named for Frozen by any chance?
Yes, as a matter of fact, she was one of two dogs my mom got. We ended up taking her because my mom got a little overwhelmed. So she has a sister named Anna.
Of course she does. Well,
our other two wiener dogs are Chili and Pecan.
Oh, I love it. So
So.
my 4 cats, and we got Han, Lando, Mal, and Jane.
Oh yeah, I've been enjoying hearing them make tons of crashing sounds during the stream.
Breaking things during the stream periodically. Hopefully, one or more of them will. It's always your Pancake's fault. He looked up as soon as I said his name. His ears folded over right now. He looks ridiculous. But we'll see if any of them grace us with their presence. So, where do you hail from, Sean?
I'm in Arizona. I'm actually in the greater Phoenix area.
Oh, cool.
So we, I was going to say we just got locked down by Governor Ducey this week.
Fun times. How's that treating you guys so far?
It's the same thing. You're indoors and you're kind of after a while like, okay, I got to get out a little bit. You get a little tired of just like staring at the walls.
Yeah, oh for sure. We finally have been getting outside more. The other day we took a walk. It was magical. It was like, oh my God, the sun, the world, it's all here. It's all still exists.
Yeah, the one thing I found out that was kind of nice, believe it or not, shooting ranges are actually allowed to stay open.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was to say, are you able to exercise your hobby at all?
Yeah, I'm actually. I called them on Tuesday and I was like, "So are you guys shut down?" They're like, "Oh no, no, we're considered essential." So I was like, I don't know how that works, but I'm not complaining.
Well, I wonder maybe does local law enforcement utilize public ranges sometimes for training purposes? Something like that.
I think so. A lot of times they have their own range, but they do come out and you'll talk to them from time to time.
Yeah, maybe you could say that, or you could say like if police officers say maybe come to these private, these public ranges on their off hours, it's training for them and therefore essential. I figure there's ways you could wiggle around that. Now here in California, this is something I do want to get into at some point. They did close down our gun stores because they were as non-essential. I don't know if that's the same for you guys.
Nope.
Gun stores are still open?
Gun stores are still open. That's actually in the essentials from Ducey. That's our governor. Wow. So we kind of lucked out on that one, but it's insane going into one. I mean, everything, it's nuts. And I don't get it. I don't know.
Well, let's start with this since we're in on that right now, right? So we've got this coronavirus pandemic going on, and that's one of the things we saw in California. You saw pictures from Nevada, lines out the door to get guns, ammo selling out, things like that. What are your feelings about that? People choosing to go out and buy firearms. People who let's assume have never owned one before, don't currently own one, going out to purchase a firearm for this crisis. So
I'll be honest, I think it's kind of interesting because there are a lot of people who were maybe on the fence or didn't like the concept of, gun ownership. And all of a sudden they feel that, the stuff's hitting the fan and, oh, now I got to go get one.
Now I need one. So. You make a theoretical argument of why would I ever need to protect myself? And all of a sudden it becomes a reality and you realize I'd feel much safer if I owned one.
And it's the thing I do get worried about, and you kind of brought it up, is when people are brand new to it, if they have like no training, no experience, it's very easy to hurt yourself naturally, and not just from something like shooting yourself. I mean, if you don't hold the gun right, you can hurt yourself that way. Absolutely.
And
I was going to say one of the things I tell to new shooters is if you meet someone who says, "Oh, you're being too safe," get away from that person. Because they're being careless, and you really can't be too safe. It only takes a second to really have something dangerous happen.
Yeah. The first person I learned shooting from, his motto was, there are no accidental discharges, only irresponsible ones.
I think that's pretty accurate, actually. So
yeah. But yeah, that's sort of a thing for me. And it also goes into that idea where people talk about the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. How do you feel about that phrase, and go into some of the nuance of that phrase and what you like, if you do agree with it, do you disagree with it? What are some of the positives and drawbacks of that mentality?
It's something I do agree with, only because the problem that you usually have when you're facing someone who's intent on doing harm, you don't know what their intentions are. You don't know what their frame of mind is. You don't know if they're on anything. You don't know if they've got a buddy around the corner. And, when you actually train to assess the situation, when you get your CCW permit, that's something you learn is, if you're like in a Circle K and some guy comes in to rob the store, most of us are basically going to just be like, whatever, I'm not going to create a problem. Let's just let him take the money and go.
Yeah. And
the cops can chase him. But if you're concerned about possibly having to draw, you've got this guy, where's his buddy?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you end up with the situation of, the only thing that can stop bad guy gun is a good guy with a gun. One of the things that you run into a lot is that it doesn't get reported by the mainstream media when it happens. I had somebody who actually challenged me. They said, you can't show me one example where that's happened. And I said, challenge accepted. And I sent him an email of 11.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, none of these were easy to find, but they're there.
Yeah.
And did you see the Texas shooting that happened a couple months back?
I don't know if I followed that one much. It's sad, but it's like there's so many of these now. Not every single one of them makes your radar.
Right.
Was that the one in
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, never. That was actually one that happened out here. That was I was thinking in a big restaurant kind of place.
Oh, well, I remember that one. That was terrible. That was in Thousand Oaks.
Yeah. Not far. It's only about a half an hour away from half hour, 45 minutes away from here.
So what happened, it was a church, and some guy who background here, and a lot of people didn't know this right away. He was a homeless man who was also a drug addict. He had been getting help from the church. They had been giving him stuff to help him out. And he asked for money, and they said, well, we can't give you money. We'll give you some food or what have you. And he wanted to go get high. So he got mad. He showed up at a church. I'm a little nervous. I apologize. Never live streamed before. This is new for me.
That's all right. You're doing great so far.
But he showed up at the church during mass, and he stood up with a shotgun. He shot two people, and one of the people there was carrying. And if I recall right, he was like a security guard for the church. He drew, fired, shot him, and stopped him right there.
I did hear about this, actually. I did hear about this.
And people are like, oh, he was trying to leave. I'm like, no, he was heading towards the front of the church. He wasn't going to the door.
Yeah. No, that's and so yeah, I remember hearing about that. And it was someone like that. It was working security. I think he might have at some point have served as a police officer in law enforcement somewhere where he'd had a lot of training to use a firearm. And that's all you're putting on all the points and all the things you talk about. The training you received to carry concealed and things like that. Yeah. And I think the flip side of this argument, though, is you have a lot of people saying everyone should carry. If everyone has a gun, then you're safer and all this stuff. But then you look at a state like Vermont where there is no permit process to carry concealed. You don't need any training. You can walk into Walmart, walk out with a gun, tuck it in your pants.
Well, not Walmart anymore. They've gotten real strict about it since the whole shootings that took place there.
That may be true. When I was last time I was in Vermont, I went to school there and I lived there for a year. So I left in 2014. At that time, you still definitely could walk into a Walmart and have a gun.
Oh yeah. No, this is like the last 12 months.
4 years. That's fair. And yeah, so I think it's interesting though, because in Vermont, then there's also a lot of even though anyone can just walk around can carry concealed, there of course are really serious fines for printing or flashing and things like that.
Right.
But you could walk out of the store with a gun and not know any of that and get, be an idiot, flash your gun by accident even the next day and be hit with a serious fine because that, and that's where I think we have run into an issue in our country is that there's an imbalance between what people expect from the government in terms of gun ownership. Yes, you should let us have these. We deserve to own these. It's our right. It's our constitutional right. Mm-hmm. And what they expect of themselves in terms of their responsibility to educate themselves, to know how to handle their firearm correctly, safely, responsibly, and also important things. You talk about assessing a situation. Right. It's really interesting that you said that because I do Krav Maga. A lot of the guys there carry guns.
Oh, nice.
they're very pro gun as a group. And one of the really cool things about that group too, and they talk about that, assessing a situation. In certain circumstances, you don't have to have a gun to stop someone with a gun. If you have very specific training in disarming someone with a firearm, obviously you need to be very well trained to do that. But they always teach us things like if you're being held up, someone mugs you, someone holds you up at an ATM, asking for your wallet, asking for money, your cell phone, whatever it is, you just give it to them.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, just like
Absolutely.
You said, money can be replaced. Now, the second they want to move you, the second they say get in the car, go here, go down the street or whatever, that's when you need to fight back because of that, because that now that your odds of getting killed are higher. It's called a secondary crime scene. Your odds of getting killed if you're moved to a secondary location go up exponentially. So then how do we separate those? Somebody like you who has the good sense, or people, in Arizona where it sounds like you have a certification process to carry concealed and you have a certain amount of situational training to go, all right, leave this guy alone. He's not going to hurt anybody, versus anybody, in a state that has much more lax restrictions go like, oh, that guy pulled out a gun. Let me blow his head off before they even realize why the person's pulling a gun.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough question to answer. There's a lot in there. I was going to say, I'm actually trained in martial arts as well. I did judo for over 10 years. Awesome. And I ended up, I like to say I'm medically retired because I've had too many injuries.
Yeah.
So fortunately, no major surgeries, but I've dislocated just about all of my major joints. So
that's so
but
fun.
They're all working. So
that's important. As long as
they tell me when the weather's going to change too. So that's always nice.
It's like a superpower now.
Exactly. I'm like, it's going to rain.
My elbow says it will rain.
The hard part that you run into with things around, like, is this person really qualified? Arizona used to have a requirement for a CCW, which for people who don't know what that is, it's a concealed carry weapons permit. We don't require it anymore, but it's still offered because, number one, it's fantastic training. I encourage everybody to get it. And then the other thing is some other states reciprocate, so they will honor that. But that's not something that every state does. But this way, it gives you a little more freedom. You can go some places with your permit that without it, you can't go. For me, it's you learn about the laws, you learn about training, you get a lot of good things to go. And the thing that's interesting is they tell you a lot of really scary stories about people who were just trying to save their own life and ended up in jail.
Yeah.
And they tell you that not because it's the norm. A lot of times it's because they don't want some guy who thinks he's going to be the next hero when he sees the Circle K getting held up.
Yeah.
Like you said, you want my money? Okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
But if you then say, okay, turn around and get on your knees, now that's different. Now I'm going to die. And that's when I'm actually going to draw.
Exactly.
But, would I draw when I'm going to, if he just wants my money? No, it's not worth it.
Okay.
I want the legal fees. I don't want the emotional stress, and I don't want to get shot either. So
no. And we did another super chat from Beth Diggu. She sent a hot dog as a super sticker. So thank you, Beth.
Oh, that reminds me. Hang on a second here. Where is that? Jeff.
Yo.
Can you hear that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I'll have to send it to you guys later. I actually did make a sound clip because Kendo said, somebody's going to soundbite me on this. I'll never say no to a hot dog.
Yes.
So, yes, I did.
Perfect.
That'll be my text tone from now on.
Oh, that'll be brilliant every time. Well, hopefully just for Kendo.
Actually, what's really funny is when I was cutting it down so I could get it looped on repeat, and that's just even funnier.
That sounds good. Now you got to remix it and auto-tune it and make it.
Yeah.
Going, I'll never say no to a hot dog. I'll never say no to a hot dog. I'm ready for it.
Like who's the critical drinker for Terminator Dark Fate? He did that with Mackenzie Davis jumping into the back of the truck.
Oh, nice.
That was really funny.
I love that stuff. If I had a lot of time, I would do stuff like that. It's so fun. I still need to remix my cat running into the wall to
the Mario Brothers theme.
I was gonna do it to I can do it. I can certainly do it. Super Mario. I think that was a suggestion. Seven Nation Army was another one. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't.
Oh God. Let me just pull it up here real quick because it is probably the funniest thing anyone's ever seen. Let me see. What did I write? Mouse Smash. There we go. Let's pull this guy up. Is it opening? Did it open? Is it here? Is it somewhere? Where did it go? My computer. All right. Goodbye, America's ass. I will find this. I will figure this out. There we go. All right. Open now. Why aren't you opening? Do I need to tell you what to open with? Apparently I do. Cool. And you're not opening. Why aren't you opening? This is very upsetting to me.
Is your computer a cat too?
It probably. Realistically, yes, my computer is.
The one thing I can tell you about wiener dogs, they are the most stubborn breed I've ever encountered.
Are they really?
Yeah, it's literally Chili is like this. She'll be sitting there, and I'll be like, "Okay, you need to get off the couch," and she just looks at me like, "I don't speak English." And it's like, "No, come on." And then she'll be like, "Oh, all right," and she'll stop and she'll stretch and she'll take 2 steps and she'll stretch, and then it's just. Eventually, I walk over and pick her up and just put her on the floor.
One of the things I did learn about them as a kid is they are shockingly fast.
Yes, you don't think it.
No, my grandma was house sitting for a family that had this little wiener dog named Dorothy, and she got out and she went tearing down the block, and we were tearing after her, and we're like, "Oh my God, how are her stubby little legs moving her that quickly?"
Yeah, it's amazing. There was one day I was coming home, and my wife opened the door, and there was a cat in the front yard, and Pecan bolted after her.
Oh.
And it took me forever to catch up to her. And then she gave me this look like, no. And she started like trying to find a way to hide from me. And I'm being honest. I don't hit my dogs. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. But she was like, no, I didn't do anything really. And I'm picking her up and I've got her under my arm. And so I'm like walking all the way back to my house. And my wife's like, sorry. I'm like, yeah, maybe next time don't let them out.
Just watch. No, do not. That's my workout for the day. Oh, we got Hockey History Corner here. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, look, guns. Yes, guns indeed. I do want to share that this was probably one of the most brilliant things that's ever happened in my life. So I do just want to share this with you guys really quickly. Where did it go? Oh, it's right here. I'm retarded. We knew that already. So here y'all can see it now. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Conversation about Donald Trump's lexicon.
No.
So that was the original clip. I have it cut down where I showed the replay of it multiple times, but that was, he just boom, head first right into the wall, just like,
oh shit, pancake splattered like a pancake.
It was hilarious. And then he turns around and comes back to play with the toy like nothing happened. But that thunk was just, oh my God.
When they were puppies, Chili did that to our sliding glass door. She like ran up, stopped, and looks at it for a minute. And she's like, no, there's nothing there. And then just jumped at it. And then she was sitting there with her paws on her head. And I was like, oh, honey.
Oh, baby. The screen door was not an option in my home. We have Newfoundlands. And then even if they know it's there, they just pick up a paw to be like, I'm going to scratch at it to be let in or out. And there's no more screen.
Yep.
Just destroyed. They're quite beastly animals. And wonderful, gentle giants, but giants for sure. So,
I totally admit I missed something on the question you asked. One of the things, by the way, with getting people trained in gun ownership, the place where it gets sticky is how do you get people to go do it without enforcing it? Yeah. And how do you enforce it without registering it? And that's where things get sticky. Yeah. Because the whole point of the firearms the whole point of the Second Amendment is really supposed to be our last resort against tyranny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I used to say this from 2000 to 2008 when I would have people say to me, well, I don't think anybody should have guns but the government. I said, so you want George W. Bush to have all the guns? Yeah. And then they'd be like, and I'm like, so right now you want Donald Trump to have all the guns?
No.
Yeah. So
I don't want him to have a gun. I don't want him to have anything like that. I'm already frightened by the amount of power he currently holds.
Exactly. So let's make sure that we, the people, retain ours. And that's really the concept behind it. And if they don't have this list of, okay, well, we know whose house to go to.
That's true.
And there was a guy in, I'm trying to think if it was Georgia, but he was just a citizen. He was talking about this exact topic. He said, look, if you're going to come and take guns away, who's going into the hood? Who's going into the criminal's neighborhood and getting their guns first? Because the average citizen is going to hand theirs over, but the criminals aren't supposed to have them as it is.
Exactly. So you don't even know where to go. You don't have the, registered names and whatnot for those people. Right. And so basically if you're saying we're going to enforce something, we're going to go take guns away, we're going to restrict gun usage, is now in an initial, if that type of law were to take effect, you got to think about implementation. Let's say we decide from this point on, somebody puts a law into effect saying we're taking the guns away. That point is actually very valid. That the only people who left with guns, people talk about, the people who get them illegally are still going to get them illegally, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I never even thought of that point right there. If you want to just start enforcing this immediately, surrender your guns, the only people left with them right away are going to be people who aren't supposed to have them. So.
Right. And they now know that you don't have them and I don't have them, and the law-abiding public that they are committing crimes against doesn't have them.
Yeah. Now, if that were the thing that would happen, now imagine this: if somebody passed some sort of legislation, imagine the number of guns that would be suddenly reported stolen before they enforce it.
Well, I can tell you right now, like, what I find really interesting is that the Second Amendment community is very, very strong in their belief that this is a right. It's an inalienable right. The whole point of the amendment isn't that to give us guns. It says that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The government can't take the right from us.
Yeah.
And so when people are like, oh, well, if they say that guns are going to be illegal, you'll just hand them over. I'm like, you don't know these people, do you? They're not going to hand them over. No. It'll be pandemonium.
Well, you'd have to, in order to do that legally, you would have to ratify an amendment to the Constitution, which I don't think would ever get the support to pass.
No, I don't think so. Because and the one thing that's big, actually, on my channel, I try not to do too much political stuff because the thing is, believe it or not, there are a lot of people who are on the left who do believe in the Second Amendment, and so there's a misconception that it's just for the crazy alt-right people, and it's like, no, there's people on the far left even. You know, it's I always like to joke around that my political leanings. I'm a registered member of the Jason Bourne Party. I'm on my own side.
Yeah.
So because there's certain things, like obviously Second Amendment, I lean very conservative. Civil liberties and civil rights, I lean very left.
Yeah.
So
similar, yeah, and that's why I don't sign up with a party affiliation because I'm like I have different opinions. They fluctuate. They've changed over the course of my life, and not everything's consistent. I don't go vote by a ballot. Oh, these are the lefties. Let me vote for them. I definitely have some very central. Actually, a lot of my ideals right now, even socially, because the line has gotten drugged so further and further and further. There's certain things socially where I apparently am conservative now, or uncomfortably moderate. You know, because I believe everyone has the right to be whoever they want to be, and I believe that you can, use whatever pronouns you want to use, but that's not an enforceable policy, or that you don't need to add 37 different pronouns to the dictionary. So
and that's the point is, one thing that can be very frustrating that I've seen in like the political climate lately is it's like, well, you either believe in everything we believe in or else you're the complete opposite. It's like, oh, Jesse, you don't think we should enforce pronouns? You must be alt-right. No, you're not. That's ridiculous.
I proudly call myself an alt-right SJW because I get equally accused of being both things.
That's an interesting term.
Oh God, yeah, that's my life though, because you'll see it all, and especially depends on whose channel I'm on, where my audience, which sex subset of my audience happens to be present on a certain day. Who came over from where? I might get somebody popping over from a more left-leaning channel that found my channel because of some similar content, and then hears me say something and goes, "Oh God, you're a Nazi," which is incredibly offensive because I'm Jewish. And then you have somebody else.
My wife's half Jewish, so
awesome! Yay,
the better half.
Exactly. But Jeff's gonna have his first Passover in a little bit, in just over a week. So
excellent.
We're excited.
You excited, Jeff?
Yeah. Brisket.
He's excited for brisket.
Brisket is always good, and matzah is good.
Matzah is great when you don't have to eat it for 7 straight days.
Yeah.
That's always the thing. Everyone's like, matzah's so good. I'm like, yeah, except for those periods of my childhood where we decided we were going to try to actually be kosher for Passover, which means no leavened bread for a week. And you're like, fuck this noise.
No, I hear you. Yeah. I was very fortunate. I was actually raised Catholic, although funny story, I was the first person to say, well, I'm not saying I don't believe in Christianity, but I don't believe in Catholic doctrine. I did that when I was 17, and the next day my mom came home with confirmation papers, which was really funny. And then 10 years later, she goes, I don't agree with everything in the Catholic doctrine either. Okay. And so I like to say she followed me out, which is not to put Catholics down in any way. There's nothing wrong with Catholicism as far as I'm concerned. And I'm talking faith, not institution. Yeah. So it's just a matter of, when it comes to faith, everybody, different faiths have different doctrines, and what people believe is what they believe. But as a kid, you're supposed to always have fish on Fridays. Mm-hmm. And my parents did not enforce that, thankfully. I do like fish, but when I was a kid, I liked like trout, and that was it.
Sure. Yeah. So. As a kid, my fish palate was much more limited as well. that's something for me that like since moving to California, I never really liked sashimi. I love raw fish now. I got the opportunity to try more different kinds of fish and more different preparations. I'm like, now fish is amazing and I love it. So
my wife introduced me to sushi and I was real reluctant. I was like, and now I love it. And sorry, I'm just reading a firearm is nothing compared to the government's.
You can finish your train of thought. I just brought
sorry. But yeah, the funny thing is what I introduced her to, because I'm Italian, is I just lost my. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we were on.
It's fish, and I'm trying to think calamari. She had never even heard of it.
Yes.
I was like, you haven't had calamari? And she goes, well, what is it? And I said, it's squid. She goes, no, I'm not going to try that. And she thanked me afterward, just like I thanked her for introducing her to sushi. So
nice. That's one that Jeff has recently told me he is willing to try again because I love calamari. And
I ate it in Spain and it sucked.
But that was like a million years ago, right?
I mean, 2005 wasn't
a million years ago.
They also leave their food out on the counter.
Oh, ew.
Yeah, they have different food standards.
That's
hey, Jeff, was that in Ohio?
No, Spain.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, when I was a trip there many years ago.
My mom's family's from New York, so when I first had it as a kid, that's where I had it. Mm-hmm. And then I grew up near the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia. We were in a suburb of DC.
Nice.
So before we moved to Arizona, so I've had good fish. Trust me, it's not like getting fish in Arizona. It's not that you get bad fish, but you definitely don't get stuff like you're going to get in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fish you guys get out there is way better because it's fresher.
So freaking good. But the first place I ever had calamari was this little beachside place up in outside of New Haven called Jimmy's, and they did it with the tentacles as well as the rings. So I know a lot of people who like calamari but don't fuck with the tentacles because I think it's weird. But that was the first way I was exposed to it as a kid at an age where I was like, "Oh, tentacle food! Hooray!" I was that kind of kid. So I
hear you. That's awesome though. Exciting.
I definitely. And I've eaten some. I tried octopus also when I was not that old. So I sort of was like, oh, okay, this is a thing you can eat. And yeah, grilled octopus is delicious.
Yeah, my wife and I have actually gone back and forth on different weird foods we've gotten each other to try and eat. She still I still will not eat gefilte fish.
Ah! That's something we have to do next week. We got to figure out how to make it.
Yeah, Seder plate time.
Exactly. I don't blame you, but we've had the pleasure of having homemade gefilte fish the past couple of Seders. But the person who made it was my ex, so obviously he's no longer in the picture. So now we have to figure out how to make our own gefilte fish. The last time I had homemade gefilte fish was at my friend Hadass. Hopefully she'll be joining us soon. Her mother makes her own gefilte fish, and when it's a different world when it's homemade versus when it's like in a jar with goop. So, but it's also a process. So
I feel it. It's just like I will say my grandmother, who's the Italian side from my mom's side of the family, I begged her for her recipes for years. And unfortunately, a few years ago, she passed away. She never passed them down to me, which is heartbreaking to me because if you've had homemade pasta, that stuff in the box is not the same thing. I mean, I'll still eat it, but it's not like when you get it homemade, it's a whole different world.
I've had that joyful experience a few times from some really nice niche places, and it's cool. It is definitely different. That was like, I'm pretty sure they make their own at that little Italian place we had lunch at.
Where?
In Seattle.
Make what?
Make their own pasta.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah,
that's delicious.
It's this little like
Seattle. All of our food in Seattle.
Oh my God.
When you're talking about the fish, I was thinking that place we went to, the crab.
Yeah, we
place.
went to one of those places that like boils all the seafood in the bags and
nice.
Oh God, or steams it. Yeah.
See, and now we're gonna have this kind of fish for dinner, which is gonna be good. But
now we've talked up all our greatest fishing adventures.
I'm actually looking at gefilte fish to see
how to make it.
Have fun, Jeff.
It wouldn't be too bad because I've cooked a lot with my mom. This is similar to her.
It's gonna be like your
salmon recipe.
Yeah.
So I don't mind.
That's fine. We'll make it. We'll just have to season it well so that it's not disgusting.
This is the Food Network version.
Oh, okay. So it's already got all the
seasonings.
seasonings.
We're going to follow this one to a T. It's Wolfgang Pucks.
Perfect. So toxic masculinity brings up this point that I posted on here, and this is something I do want to. I mean, outside of our right to have bear arms, you obviously, you hit the nail on the head exactly what our constitutional right is for. If it actually came down to that, if it actually came down to the people saying, "Screw this tyrannical," let's say Donald Trump decides he's the boss forever now, and gets the military on his side to enforce his rule for all of eternity, and the people say, fuck this shit, we don't subscribe to the dictator, let's rise up. What chance realistically do you think we would have against the US government?
Well, I'll be honest in saying this is something I got, this was from a History Channel episode, because I saw the comment, and there's some validity to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have tanks. I'm not allowed to go out and buy an F-16 and get missiles to arm it with. And if I would, not only could I not afford it, but I really wouldn't want to try and maintain something like that. That'd be kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, that takes a lot of money, a lot of space, and a lot of time.
Yeah, I love car stuff. And is it Dion's into cars?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, ask him about this. Like, if you actually go on any YouTube channels where guys own exotic cars and they start talking about what it costs just to maintain it for a year, all of a sudden I'm like, my Honda Accord is really nice. I like that. But
as a car guy, and he's like, he refuses to buy certain cars because of the insurance alone.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
That makes sense.
He bought a Maserati, and that's as far as he'll take it.
There's my dad's friend had a car that had specialty tires, and it was like, you needed to get this type of tires, and the tires themselves cost more than any regular car ever would. So
they run flats?
I have no idea.
Run flats can be pricey, especially like performance run flats, and then they're directional, so you can't rotate them.
Oh.
Like you can rotate them front to back, but you can't cross rotate them. Yeah. And then if you have a sports car where the rear tires are bigger, then you can't rotate them at all.
Mm-hmm. And shortens the overall life of the tires and forces you to have to replace them sooner.
Yeah, exactly. But to kind of his point, and again, this was a TV show I saw a long time ago on the History Channel, so I don't know how accurate that is. So if anybody's like, oh, that's not true, I don't know. But their claim was that during the Cold War, the Soviet Union had a plan if they had to invade America, how long it was going to take. And it was something like 6 months for them to defeat the United States military.
Wow.
And 10 years to defeat grassroots citizens who were basically using guerrilla tactics.
Yeah.
So when he says, oh, well, it's nothing like that. Well, the Soviet Union doesn't agree. Well, didn't agree. They're gone. But,
True. Now the question is,
now it's just Putin, and that's basically just as bad.
Yeah. Well, things have changed since then. I mean, it basically just is the same thing. And one of the things you'll look at there is like how technology has changed. You look at a situation. If a militia, if grassroots militias, independent militias are going to have any chance against the U.S. government, you need to be heavily coordinated. You need to be able to communicate effectively with each other. Which means you need to then have created and be able to maintain a reliable source of communication that operates outside of the cellular networks, because otherwise the government's going to know exactly where you are. Even if you have to be able to have people who are able to go in. But even if you're using the internet, if you're using data, so it's not as simple as just disabling your GPS. The government can still track, you can still hack into your device and find out where you are. As long as you're on the network, as long as you're on data, they can triangulate your position and things like that.
Phones for the win.
So, but even
I'll be honest, I don't know anything because I fortunately don't know any of those crazy militia types.
I was reading something really crazy the other day about a group up in Washington, that like east of the Cascades, who wants to split off into their own state. They still want to be part of the U.S., but they want to split into their own state. That's like a Christian state, and have all their guns.
Talk about this?
Yeah, we were. It was because it was weird.
That's weird.
Have you ever seen Bowling for Columbine?
I actually have not.
Oh God, I hate this film.
Yeah, I'm not a fan either. But he interviews the Michigan militia.
Oh, well.
Well, and see, two things I got to say about Bowling for Columbine. The first one is when I first watched it, I didn't know much about it, and I was talking to somebody about it, and they said go research it on your own, and then I was really pissed once I did. That movie is very heavily manipulated into what he's showing you and to what he tells you and what he doesn't. And one of the things also is I like how it's like, oh, let me go talk to gun owners like the Michigan militia and the brother of Timothy McVeigh. Or no, it was Terry Nichols' brother, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is who's representing us? Dude, this is like saying, well, let's talk to some real Muslims. Here's this guy who's a jihadist.
Yeah.
You're kind of being a little prejudiced there,
Exactly. And that was something, I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia. Philly, fairly left-leaning city. So obviously in the city itself, plenty of guns, plenty of gun violence, all that stuff. And then out in the suburb, you have a lot of people who don't see a need to own, who have been, have privileged enough to not see a need for gun ownership. So I grew up with a mentality of like, ew, why do we need guns? Guns are bad. Went up to Vermont to school, started meeting a lot of people who've always had guns, who've always had to be part of their lives, who regularly take their guns out to hunt for food. And their meat in the wintertime comes from the deer that they're hunting. And I got a whole new perspective on it. And the first time I ever held one, it was very much the experience of like the first time I ever got behind the wheel of a car, where I think any sane, reasonable person has a deep understanding that I'm now in control of a deadly weapon, of something that can take lives. And there's a respect that comes with that. And I think that's such an important thing to have, and which is why I also would change my perspective. I'm like, you know what? I think most reasonable, rational people say, if they have a gun, they're not going to use it irresponsibly.
Right. And the thing that you kind of pointed out is, it is very different when you've never been exposed to it. And I think that's one of the problems that where the dialogue breaks down a lot is you have people who have no experience with it. And the way that we're kind of portrayed by anti-gun folks, and I'm not trying to be mean here, but it's kind of true. We don't get portrayed as, hey, we think this is a right, it's important. We get portrayed as, frankly, I was contemplating coming on the show, and then when you had to turn on, have fake teeth that were falling out, holding on to a shotgun with a bandolier on, going, I'm here to talk about my rights, and that's kind of how we get looked at as like these crazy people. But, once you get to know a lot of people who are in the Second Amendment community, it's not the case. Most people are just, it's like you, it's like me, it's like Jeff, it's like Dion, and it is one of those things where you start, and I'll say this too, is once you kind of go target shooting, it's fun. And I'll be honest, I'm not a hunter. I don't have anything against hunting. I'm actually, and this is very true, if you meet what I like to call real hunters, they're very conservation. They always are very adamant about the continuation of species, and no one hates poachers more than real hunters. They hate poachers. And so I do support, as long as it's done legal, as long as it's done by the book, I'm fine with it. But I like to say I hunt paper targets because that's pretty much, I just do it for fun. Or every October I bring pumpkins out to the desert and I blast them for the channel, which can be a lot of fun.
We were watching some of those earlier. That was fun.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you guys checked those out. But I was going to say too, there was something I was reading the other day. Feral hogs actually in the South have become a real problem. They were introduced, they're not a natural species for the purpose of hunting, and they bred out of control. So there are certain states where you can hunt them all year round.
Yep. Texas, we were talking about that guy, remember?
Yeah.
Yep.
And somebody was talking on a forum that I was on about how they're allowing people to go up in a helicopter and shoot at them in a herd. And the first thing that went through my head, which the very next comment was related to, was, helicopters are moving, they're gyrating. How are you going to keep from losing control of your rifle?
Yeah.
And sure enough, some guy was like, yeah, we tried, one of my friends tried that. He shot himself in the foot.
Ah, geez.
And he actually said, he lost his foot and it had happened recently. He goes, and he may lose part of his lower leg. So that was a bad idea. But the best perspective on what real hunters are like was the next guy who came up and he said, I'm not so sure I'm okay with this. You're firing into a group. Yep. Maybe you knock one or two down and they die, but a couple of them are injured. And then they wander off and take days to die of gangrene. He said, that is not the way a hunter should be approaching the situation. No. That's real important to most hunters is the concept of being ethical.
Yep.
They want it over as quick and as painlessly as possible because they're not there for the glory of the kill. They're harvesting an animal.
Yep. Exactly.
So that doesn't mean the animal has to suffer.
Exactly. To me, trophy hunters are not hunters, they're killers. If you hunt game and you use the meat, you use the hide, use any part of the animal, that's hunting. If you hunt so you can stick a head on your wall and say, look at this big thing I killed, you're just a killer.
I'm not a fan of trophy hunting either.
Me neither. I think it's ridiculous. It's just like, well, who kills for fun? Who kills for fun? That just seems, I kind of even started to feel that way. the more I learned about people who are really into fishing. And like, yeah, you fish and you use the fish and you eat the fish, generally speaking, but it's like this obsession with a sport that's all about killing animals. And I'm like, that just, to me, there's something about it. You know, go for it, fish, eat the fish. Fresh caught fish is delicious. Nothing against that stuff, you know. But to me, like, fishing as a hobby, like people talk about people who hunt as a hobby who are using the meat, it's a different attitude than I think people who are like, I'm out here to sit on my boat all day long and kill fish. Okay.
No, I'm a terrible fisherman because I can't be patient. I've tried and I just gave up. But I kind of agree because I still think my favorite joke from Jeff Foxworthy is, if you've ever been too drunk to fish, you might be a redneck. And it's like, yeah, because you just sit there like this all day.
Exactly.
I know some people dig it. I get bored real quick.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. We went out. I was in Hawaii, and I went out with people I was with early in the morning, and to do deep sea fishing. And I just went into the boat and took a nap most of the time because it was really early. We did either like before dawn, and I was tired. So
I hope you didn't get sunburned.
I did not. I used tons of sunscreen and stayed in the shade as much as possible. But it was exciting. Yeah. So we do have a couple of super chats I do want to address here. Hawk Three Corners said, "Thank you for the couple of super chats. We'll read them both and then discuss. Even assuming the whole military goes along with it, just look at what it took to subdue the LA riots. It was a sizable percentage of all U.S. infantry to subdue 1/7 of LA. Subduing the U.S. is near impossible. Also, 2A is to protect us against foreign enemies too. The USSR comment is proof of that. Invading the U.S. will always suck."
Yep.
There's a Beth one that I missed too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no!
On screen and then you moved it.
Oh, I did. Right, I never read this one, but I did have it on screen. Beth Diggu says, "I've eaten so much weird crap. I can empathize with that." Beth, you'll have to come back on, and we'll have a weird things we've eaten stream one of these days.
I'm in.
A whole bunch of steak.
I dig it. But we'll talk about that.
There's been times where people are like, "Do you know what you're eating?" I'm like, just don't tell me.
Just don't tell me.
It tastes good. I like it. Don't tell me what's in this.
Exactly. There's some things that have been ruined for me by knowing what they are.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, what was it, the calf fries were one of those because they weren't particularly good to begin with.
Calf fries?
Calf fries.
Oh, wait a minute. Is this like the Funny Farm? You know, Jeff, did you ever see Chevy Chase's Funny Farm movie where they're eating lamb fries?
Yep, it's the same thing.
They're balls.
We didn't know either. We took a bite and I was like, this is like bad chicken.
Yeah, we had that entire dinner. We had, 5 of us there? Yeah. We were all bonded by the experience of balls in our mouths. So
Jeff, you're telling me you've had balls in your mouth?
Sadly, just one time, but Jesse was there, so
I was there. It was fine. It wasn't gay because I was there.
Okay.
and a gay woman actually. So I guess it was a little gay if Sarah was doing it.
I don't know if it'd be gay if Sarah was doing it. It'd be really intense if a gay woman put
a ball in her mouth.
Balls in her mouth.
I think it just makes it gay. I think if Fugba does it, it makes it gay.
We drank wine. We ate dinner.
So gay.
So
eating. I was going to say I don't have any of that desk wine, but I've got desk rye.
Yeah, awesome. Is that Bullet?
Yeah, it is Bullet.
That's a good. Have you heard the story of desk wine on our channel?
No.
After Halloween 2018, I had bought all this booze to do an all-day stream, and I had all this wine that I would keep under my desk, and I would randomly, people would send me super chats like, all right, I'll take a shot of desk wine. And it got brought back up on the channel the other day, so I kind of missed desk wine.
Oh well, maybe we can
we'll use that Carlo Rossi.
Ugh, no, we're never gonna drink that. That's just decoration now.
That's shit wine.
So this is something interesting though, and this is a great point too. It definitely makes us a bitch for foreign invaders. For that very reason, not that anyone would be stupid enough to try to.
Yeah, we all saw Red Dawn. We know how that goes.
We do know exactly that goes.
Yeah, that's right, commie bastards.
Patrick Swayze, why'd you have to die?
That was the first PG-13 film ever. Like the first
official
one to get the title.
When they started that rating, using that rating. Interesting. I did see the remake.
So did I in theaters.
Yeah, she wasn't that bad. It was definitely not.
You know they changed it though, right? It was originally supposed to be the Chinese. They filmed the whole movie. Okay, and then they changed it to the Koreans because they didn't offend the market. Because they wanted to sell in China. Shout out to Rob, by the way, in the chat. Robot Shlomo.
Robot Shlomo's around. That's cool. So this is an interesting thing to discuss too. And I agree with that as well. If you're talking about a situation where, subduing the LA riots, having the infantry come in and go, and we've even had situations too before where private citizens have caused the U.S. infantry to stand down. Now, one thing that I think we're not taking into account with all of this, though, and that also goes back to the comment that somebody said about firebombing your citizens is a good way to turn them all against you. So here's the thing. we think about these things as if like the government tomorrow did this, the existing government, the existing framework of government that we have. Now, when you get to a situation where you're like, we need to stand against our government, against tyranny, and you get to a situation where the US government is willing to mobilize the army against its own citizens, you have a very, very different, I can joke, or let's say Donald Trump does it tomorrow, you know, this is something that's so far beyond anything we've seen. And for president to, or for any kind of military takeover of the country where the military is actually mobilized against your citizens. And so, you know, it's things like we can talk about this is what the US is going to do in the instance of a global pandemic. Well, shit, here's a global pandemic. No one was prepared, you know?
No. And apparently we all have really dirty behinds and we have to stock up on TP.
Right, exactly. Our butts are gross. We just can't lay off the Taco Bell in quarantine.
We missed the free Taco Bell they were giving out.
Oh, they're giving a free Taco Bell?
Like 2 days ago, we missed it. We were like, I was gonna be like, let's go get it.
Darn.
You should just buy Chipotle away, you know, like South Park told us to.
It's a good episode.
So, and this is a great point by Robert Shlomo too. The military is trained to follow orders. That's what they do. And people discount, you know, the amount of dehumanization that goes into basic training for soldiers. So you have a certain amount of obedience that you're talking about. So let's have a theoretical situation where we do have an obedient military and a tyrannical leader who is interested, whose primary goal is to control the population and be the dictator. Now you have a situation, they don't give a shit about your opinion of their you know, of their office. If they're firebombing you,
right.
We're thinning out, you know, the herd and making it harder for you to revolt and stand against us. You know, you're not talking about the infantry coming into a situation like the LA riots or like the land disputes that have happened that have drawn them out in the past. You know, trying to peaceably resolve something in a way where with minimal casualties. You're talking about a theoretical example where people, have taken extreme measures to control the populace. And I don't think in that situation you're going to see infantry, you know, creating human perimeters and forcing control themselves. I think you're going to see tanks, you're going to see air raids, you're going to see drone strikes. Obviously right. I don't think it's ever actually going to happen, but in that situation, you know, with right now the government's ability to pinpoint so many of its people via our cell phones, via, you know, satellites and all the technology we have to just find people and take them out without even ever sending a man in. I think people, you know, as much as I'm for the idea of the Second Amendment, I don't know if even like the documentary you watched, if any of that stuff holds weight today because of how much the technology's changed and because of you know, you were talking about a situation, not a normal logical, okay, well, this is logically, you know, the government trying to put down an insurgency. You're talking about the government is the insurgent at this point. The government right. is the, you know, malicious party, and they are the ones who are going to be taking it too far, not the people. So how does that?
If the government's gonna attack its people, they're gonna do it in a way we don't even know about because
they're gonna do it real slow. As a matter of fact, I know you've had Razor Fist on. I don't know if you heard him talk about the allegory. Well, not allegory, but basically he was talking about how if you put a frog in boiling water, it's going to jump right out. But if you put a frog into water and slowly turn up the heat, it will allow itself to be boiled alive. Yeah.
That is a true scientific fact.
And so if anybody ever wonders, it's like, well, why is it that we can't have, and I'm going to use the term real quick, common sense gun laws? Why do these gun nuts not want to have it? It's because they have that in mind. It's like, well, today, and because this is something that we have run into when they're like, all we want is for you guys to fill out paperwork, which that's been around for decades, you know, that, okay. And now we want waiting periods. And now you can't have this type of gun. And now you can only have this many ammunition. Do you see how it just keeps, the line keeps getting moved and we keep getting pulled further back and further back and further back. And the interesting thing too, is how often information ends up getting twisted. You know, like for example, there was a guy in California. This was one of those moments in the 2A community where we all collectively fell over laughing. There was a guy in California who was talking about it. He was holding up an AR-15 and he said, it has a 30 caliber magazine, which is incorrect, 30 round magazine. And he goes, it can fire the entire magazine in under a second. I literally had to wipe tears away from my eyes because in order to do that, just so you know, a fully automatic AR-15, which is an M16, fires about 800 rounds a minute. That's the cyclical rate.
Yeah.
So in order to fire 30 rounds in 1 second, it would have to fire 1,800 rounds per minute. And you're telling me that this guy's trying to claim that me with just going like this, I can pull that 30 times in a second. No, that's ridiculous. And it's that kind of scare tactic. It is exactly what we see so often from both sides, which is fear mongering.
Yeah. And willful misinformation.
Right. And they talk about, and I actually have a good example real quick. They talk about the huge round of this is a 223, which is what the AR-15 is typically chambered in.
Yeah.
Well, let's compare that to an 8mm Mauser round from World War II that the Germans used. Much smaller. And the reason, there's a lot of reasons we ended up going to a smaller round. One of them being that they found when they started looking at different fire farts and seeing, did I just say fire farts? Sorry.
It was the best thing that happened.
That's what happens after Taco Bell. But in different firefights, the military found whoever had more ammo, regardless of how big the bullet was, usually was the side that won, because the guy who ran out was the one who really got screwed. Yeah. And you can carry more smaller ammo.
That's true. It doesn't take that big of a bullet to kill somebody. So
no, and an 8mm Mauser. By the way, so when people also say, "Can't you have a hunting rifle?" Well, then we're looking at that big 8mm Mauser round, which is much more powerful and much more deadly if you get shot with.
Yeah, is that really what you want?
Right, and a lot of people don't know this. One of the first school shootings that happened in the 70s was actually in Texas. It was I forget which university. There was a guy who was very disgruntled. He killed a few people with a shotgun on his way up to the tower on the campus.
Just telling you about this guy the other day. That was University of Texas, and it turns out after the fact he had a brain tumor that was pressing on his amygdala, and so it's probably fucking up his emotional reasoning and all that.
Yeah, but the thing is, he didn't have an AR-15, which was available at the time. They've been available to the public since the early 60s. You know, when people say, "Oh, it's this new technology that we never do," this has been around since the early 60s to the civilian public. But no, he had a Remington 700, which is a bolt-action rifle designed for hunting. And his first victim was a pregnant woman who he shot. I think it was a 7mm caliber, and he shot right through, killed her and the fetus instantly. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, it's pretty deadly to just use a hunting rifle as well. If people want to do bad things, they'll find a way to do it. I mean, like even in Canada, where we saw that incel guy who ran people over with the truck.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, think about it. If you plow a car into a public area, you're going to take a lot more lives than, you know, taking most types of guns into anywhere. So.
Didn't that happen in London?
Yeah, that's happened.
10 years ago.
That's been a big, you know, terrorist tactic in the past. Even without explosive devices, it's just using cars as themselves. And we talked about them being a deadly weapon as well. You know,
well, and bringing up Timothy McVeigh, I mean, look what that guy did with, you know, diesel fuel and fertilizer, essentially, and the right know-how.
Yeah.
And
what's that quote from Fight Club? Yeah, with enough soap, you can blow up just about anything.
Yes. Yes, as a matter of fact.
Great quote from that. And actually, it's funny you mentioned the frog analogy. That also reminds me of a great moment. A similar concept, which I think is something you see so much in our government today, and in our media today, was from Gladiator, another one of my favorite movies, where he talks. One of the senators is talking about. I think this, you know, Commodus knows what what Rome is. It's the mob. Give them blood and they'll love you for it. Take away their freedom and still they'll roar. And that's. Right. We're so distracted today by all of these mundane little things, by arguing over gender pronouns and bathroom rights and first world problems and all of this stuff, that it's like, what else is going on when we're not looking, you know?
Well, and I hate to pick on California. If you're in the Second Amendment community, I'm sorry, you guys are kind of a free target because the gun laws there are so strict.
Yep.
I like to joke that if I ever wwent to California, I'd have to disguise myself because they'd be like, "Yeah, I know you. Come here." You know,
you have a gun. That said, they did because it was almost impossible to get a concealed carry permit. About the time I moved out here, actually, they passed legislation to make it easier to get concealed carry. The things I do like about California gun laws are the education elements of it, the mandatory education elements of it, which I think is great. I think all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, if I ever got a gun here, that'll be my favorite part of it, is going through the safety classes, going through that education protocol. But you have the waiting periods and the background checks, and all those cost money out of your pocket too, which I also think is a little bit ridiculous.
Well, and the thing I don't like about waiting periods is every time I hear about someone who had a waiting period and someone got killed, it was a woman who had a restraining order against some domestic abuser wanting to get a gun in, but while she's on her waiting period, she gets killed.
Yeah.
And that really, that bugs the crap out of me. By the way, I hate to plug another channel, but if you want to check one out, there's a channel called Armed and Feminine.
Oh.
And it's run by a woman named Kelly. She's a firearms instructor, and I love it. It's women teaching women. And to me, why this is so great is, I'm going to be honest, sorry. But what I love about it is I've watched a few of her videos and I became a big fan because she's like, so if you're going to carry in a purse, and I'm like, yeah, that's never come up. So how would I tell my wife what to do? Yeah. Or she was even talking about like why you might not want to cross draw. She said, if you're a more blessed woman, it might be hard to get in a cross draw. And I'm sitting there going, I've never thought of that before, Yeah. But it is, someone addressing concerns that are just being fair. Guys are going to sit there and go,
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's my Krav Maga offers women's self-defense because there's so many different things. There's so many different factors and elements. Even things like de-escalation tactics, if you're female versus male, your de-escalation tactics are completely different because an assailant responds to a woman differently than a man. So things that may, a man has a larger size man has an opportunity to de-escalate in a firm way that will be successful because the other person might rethink it and go, oh, I might have to be afraid of you. Whereas most women don't have that luxury. Even if they are a force to be reckoned with, there's other ways that they have to, talk in that situation, and it goes both ways. Whereas, it's an interesting two-way street there.
Well, and it's a great point because like you're a big guy at 6'5", and I'm a little shorter than you. I'm 6'2", so I'm not quite in the giant territory. But if you have to defend yourself against somebody who's, Jesse's size, you have a size advantage. But if both of you are now trained in the use of a weapon, that advantage really comes down because this is something on Stradiversity, I think is the name of it. It's an Australian fella. He was talking about fighting with swords because some guy had made a comment about women can't fight with swords. They're too heavy. They'd get beaten by. And this guy was sitting there as somebody who is
another guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a medieval combat artist. And he was sitting there going, that's not true. Because he's like, when you have a weapon and you get a good slash with a sword, it doesn't matter who's wielding it. One good slash is going to kill everybody just the same. That's a great equalizer right there. And that's kind of the point for, when we talk about, and we've seen it a lot lately. And just in case anybody's wondering what us gun-toting nuts think about the women coming in, we're all like, this is great. This is great. Come. No, welcome. We're so happy you're here. Like we're thrilled to see women want to get into self-defense and, make sure that you guys are taking care of yourself. Because, I'm not trying to say a well-trained hand-to-hand combat specialist couldn't take Jeff if you're 5'7". As a matter of fact, one of my good friends I did judo with he hated when I brought up the height discrepancy, but he's about as tall as you are, Jess, and he maybe weighed 140 pounds. And I refuse to admit what my weight is right now. But the last time he and I sparred, I was about 200 pounds. I'm 6'2", and he threw me around like a rag doll.
Dude.
But he's very well trained and, he knows what he's doing. But not everybody's that great at hand-to-hand combat. And if you're not.
It's true. It's absolutely true. I want to hit some of these super chats, and then I want to touch on that point about self-defense as well. Jun Wong says, car control now. Think of the children. Hey, look, you're in your car. The government's like, this is my car now. You got a car with that's hooked to the internet. You fucked. And thank you, Hawk Consensus Corner. It's Shadiversity. I sent that exact video you're talking about because it was everybody sent it to me.
You made a video about it.
I did actually made a video about it. I think I made it on my Patreon. Because immediately some guy came out. It was his criticism of The Witcher, talking about how it's unrealistic to see a woman fighting with a sword. She just doesn't have the stamina. She just can't do it. And all this other BS. Immediately, a million people were like, Jesse, you need to take on this topic. And it was a bunch of BS. Because
totally.
Exactly. Training, everyone can get cut. Everyone can bleed. Everyone has vital organs. So.
Oh yeah. And we had when I was in college, we had I can't remember her last name, but her name was Katie. She was a brown belt in judo. And we used to call her the Bull because she was vicious and she was tough to fight. Nice. Even being somebody who was bigger than her, she fought with her heart. And yeah, go ahead, try and mug her. This will be fun to watch. I'm going to get out the popcorn. I'll put it that way.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. I mean, we see a lot of. Oh, we got Hadass waiting to come in here. We also, guys, people are asking me where they can find Sean. Go Big Boar or go home. And I just posted that link in the chat. So if you see the last thing I posted, that is the link. I'm gonna make sure this gets into the description of the video. I should have done that ahead of time. That's my fault.
Appreciate it.
But definitely everyone go subscribe to Sean's channel. Best thank you for the super chat. Every year more people are killed by a person using their bare hands than by guns. Save the children. Cut off everyone's hands.
It is true.
Point, Beth. An excellent point. All right, Hadass, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. Hadass, this is Sean. Sean, this is my very good friend Hadass.
Nice to
Hey,
finally
Hadass.
meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. I actually wore this just for you because you said you had a caffeine addiction. I don't know if we can. I'm going to try and pull it up here. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
uh,
So funny because I do drink decaf. Everyone makes fun of me. Hi, Kirby.
See, I can't do the decaf. I have a caffeine addiction, and if I drink
Oh, it's
decaf,
pretty
I'm like,
bad. When
oh,
Jesse
my
and I
head.
did Whitney, we had to start taking these gel packs with caffeine in it. And then when I started using those, I was up to like 6 to 10 large coffees a day without even noticing it. No water, just
Wow.
coffee.
one thing you can do, Sean, since a lot of caffeine addiction is psychosomatic, is just have your wife give you a coffee that's decaf or half decaf, and just have her tell you it's a regular, and then your brain will do the rest.
Well, the problem is I got to get her to drink decaf first because she's not.
You guys have to do it to each other. You have to make a pact that you'll do it to each other.
Yeah, I asked Ashley if she wanted to like wave hi, and she's very, very camera shy, so she was like, no.
Well, it sounds like she is your camera operator at least some of the time.
She does a lot of it for me, and she's also somebody I bounce ideas off a lot. And I think I still have video up of her shooting a 44 Magnum, and she's actually a little shorter than you are, so I was really proud of her that she handled it like a pro.
Nice. Yeah, I watched that video. Actually, it was fun.
Yeah, that was like the one time I could do it. It was the middle of winter, so she's all bundled up. You can barely see it's her, and she felt comfortable on camera that way.
That's cool. I almost didn't. I usually do up my face a little bit, make sure my hair looks nice and have a little bit of base camera makeup on and stuff for these streams. I almost didn't do it tonight out of laziness, and I was going to come on and joke and be like, I know Sean's married. I didn't want his wife to feel uncomfortable if he came by and saw a lady, so I wanted to look as ugly as possible. But
she's a fan actually as well. She's on the live stream. Actually, I'm gonna just let you know if you see any comments from Doxy Mama 82, that's my wife.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
Ashley.
Ship it.
Love it.
Totally ship it.
We've got Jhand 04 says, "Hail, hi Jeff and Jesse. Hi Jhand 04.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna see if I can go get one of the dachshunds real quick. Hang on. Let me see if I can get Elsa back.
While Sean does this, can I plug something?
Yeah, of course.
Because I figured out how to add comments, just open a new thing. So my friend Selena, she was in my short film that you guys saw. She had recently released a album. I just want to send a link if anyone wants to give it a listen. It's very good, not just because she's my friend, but I do love it a lot.
Awesome. Well, we will absolutely.
There's the link.
Huzzah!
It's on iTunes and Spotify.
Nice. Did it post? I'm trying to see. Did it post it in the chat? Did you send it to me or did you post it in the chat?
I posted it in the chat. Like I opened the live stream on YouTube on like another window and just like typed it in.
Some links to other sources keep getting dicked, and that's dumb.
Oh, can I just put it in the private one and you?
It might make it go away even if it comes from me. If it's
what you could do, Hadass, is you could try to do one of those bit.lys or one of those tiny URLs.
Yeah.
Because sometimes YouTube can't figure out what that is. So if you go to tiny URL and just paste in what you're trying to paste in, it'll give you a new URL link and it'll take you to the same location.
I think you're confused.
On like Google? Okay, I'll do that right now.
And you can also tell her if you can't figure that out, you can also just tell us what to look up on Spotify. So.
Oh, okay, here.
We got Doxy Mama 82 saying hello. Also,
Doxy Mama 82.
I just really enjoyed this comment. Decaf tastes like toes. Oh God.
Taste the toes.
We got a pupper now. We're gonna make you big for a second.
Oh, it's a baby Dachshund.
This is Pete.
No. All right. I know. I just broke it. This is Pecan. Hi.
Oh, it's so cute.
What
So,
a baby.
she's kind of my baby. So she's also really cool, just chilling out. Elsa was getting squirmy. I was going to try and bring her back on. But on a recent channel update, I mentioned that about a year and a half ago, Pecan had to get some back surgery because she had what's called IVDD, intravertebral disc degeneration, and it's very common on dachshunds because they have the long back.
Yeah.
So the poor thing, we came home and she was dragging her hind legs.
Oh no, that's so scary.
So we took her immediately to the vet that night, and they're like, you're going to have to bring her to a specialist. So believe it or not, there are neurologists for dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought her in, and, we're a little worried because my big thing really was if she's paralyzed, we'll get her a little wheelchair that they get them, and that's fine. I don't mind taking special care of her. But what I was really worried about with her was that she was going to be in pain because she was hurting pretty bad that night.
Yeah.
And they reached around and like pinched her foot, and she actually turned and tried to nip the doctor. Aww. So they're like, oh, she's got feeling. So she's made a full recovery, and her and Elsa are play buddies. So they love to like tussle around and have fun.
Oh, that's like our boys. They run back and forth like crazy pantsers.
Except right now they're all sleeping, which is nice.
Yeah, they'll wake up later and drive us crazy all night. There's a dog eye doctor just like across the street from here. It's weird. They have all kinds of things now. Guys, if you are just joining us, make sure you press the like button. We believe in oppressing things on this channel. We have a great stream tonight, an awesome chat with Sean from Go Big Bore or Go Home. If you like guns, if you're interested in learning more about them and how big bore caliber guns fire, that's the channel you definitely want to check out. So,
yeah. I was actually very excited for this live stream because I'm not a gun person, but I am very curious about like the other side of it and some education about it.
Sure.
So, like, what were you guys talking about before I came in?
Oh, we were talking actually a lot about like different debates, different gun laws, a lot of the reasons behind the Second Amendment, things like that. Mm-hmm. One thing that I always kind of, if we can have like an open forum with someone who maybe isn't into guns, it's always a better thing because typically what ends up happening is people like get very standoffish with each other. So and that kind of is always very frustrating. You want to be able to have an open conversation. But just like anything else, I mean, a lot of it too for us is recreation. It's fun. And actually where I started my channel is because since I was a kid, I always thought it was really neat that you would get something like, and I have a bunch of cartridges handy, so I'm going to grab one. So, like the 44 Magnum, which is a big cartridge, and the challenge of being accurate with it because the recoil that you experience is pretty stout. So it's not like shooting a 22 where it feels like you're shooting a BB gun. So to be accurate with it is a challenge. And so that's one of the things that's kind of fun.
The size of the bullet causes the amount of recoil, or is it the size of the gun as well?
It's actually a combination of the amount of gunpowder you're using and the weight of the bullet. And so I'll give you kind of a comparison because I was showing a 44 Magnum. So you got like a 22.
Okay.
And then right next to it here is the 44.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 44 Magnum was actually, and a lot of people don't know this, it was originally designed for handgun hunting so that you could actually go hunting with a handgun. Because, if you try and shoot a deer with a 22, it's not going to do anything. You're just going to injure the deer, and that's cruel. That's not the point of hunting. You want to, again, like this is something we were talking about earlier. Real hunters are very, very adamant that they give an animal the quickest, cleanest death they can. Because it's not about, I want to, kill something. It's I want to harvest the meat or I want to harvest the hide. So the part that's, actually killing the animal should be quick and clean. In an ideal world, your deer is eating grass and then it's looking up at St. Peter. So it's just over quick. So the guy who developed this guy named Elmer Keith, he's long gone, but it was just the idea of, and a lot of people say, why would you want to hunt with a handgun? You have to get so close. Same thing with archery. You have to get very close if you want to be an archer. But it's definitely not something that, like, if you've ever seen the movie Dirty Harry, you wouldn't want to actually carry that if you were a cop or for self-defense. It would be a very bad idea.
Yeah, not so much. Ooh, fun fact. It seems like the number one ad, it's for the same ad that pops up in a lot of your videos, is for this, I forget what it's called now, some kind of holster. The one that's like hidden? Yeah.
Yeah.
Really neat. What are your thoughts on that type of a concealed holster?
I haven't had one of those. I have a lot of apprehension around appendix carry. That's what it's called when you basically tuck it down the front of your pants.
Got it.
Mainly because, especially as a guy, guess what that's pointed at?
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to carry like sort of behind the hip.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's not pointed at me. So if there was some kind of an accidental discharge, unlikely, but if it happened, it's not hitting me.
Yeah.
It also, and this is learning training. If you're defending yourself, when you're coming this way, you actually are just basically going to be lifting it up at the person you actually want to point it at.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I mentioned, a cross draw, you're going to come across like a whole range.
A whole bunch of people.
That's just dangerous.
That's one of the really interesting points about when they teach you firearm self-defense in Krav is live side and dead side in terms of like where you're standing, which way is better to move the gun when you do need to just try to disarm somebody. And like there is a preferred way to do it. You want to take it. You typically want to go to your dead side because that's furthest away. That's going to get the bullet, the barrel off of you as quickly as possible.
Right.
So then you take things into consideration, like if there's a group of people around you, where are the people? If someone's standing to your right, you got to go to the left, vice versa, because that you might have the bullet, the barrel is not on you anymore, but that barrel is now pointing at someone you might like.
Right. And ironically, like I said, I studied judo.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to say that my first form of defense is what I call the Nike defense, which is if I think there's going to be trouble, leave.
Yep.
Just get out of there. But I'm also a big fan of if I'm unarmed. Someone said, so what would you want to do? And I always used to say, if somebody puts their hands on me, I like the idea of breaking fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And as mean as that sounds, there's a I'm never gonna live that down. That's okay though.
Well, I'm not going to use Sean Firefart from now on. That's what I'm going to refer to you.
All right, cool. But when you break somebody's fingers, they can't grab a weapon, they can't grab you, and they can't hit you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my thinking there is that, like, if their hands are useless, I've defended myself.
Yep.
Because and this is actually one of the misconceptions that we get a lot from people who aren't part of the gun community, and is I'm going to address this to Hadass. A lot of people think, well, you want to shoot to kill. No, you want to shoot to stop the threat. That's the actual terminology we use.
Yep.
And the purpose of that, and a good example, there was a very famous shootout between some bank robbers and the FBI in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is legend in the law enforcement community. And the thing is, they got into this firefight, and these guys got shot several times, but they continued shooting back and ended up killing several FBI agents. And to let you guys know, like, these weren't guys that like were just walking into a bank, sticking it up and leaving with the money. They would literally follow armored trucks. When the guy got out, they would come out, shoot the guy, kill him, and then take the money and leave. So this wasn't like somebody who just wanted the money. No, they would kill the armored guard and then take his money. So they knew when they were following these guys, they were going to be trouble. The reason I bring this up is the very first shot that one of the assailants got hit with was through his arm, and it went through into his chest, and it hit his aorta.
Ooh.
Now, here's the thing. He kept fighting after that for several minutes before he succumbed to his wound.
Mm-hmm.
But if he had been on an operating table, the coroner had said if he had been on an operating table when he shot, it was a fatal wound. He was not going to recover.
Yeah.
There was no way of saving him. But here's why that's still a failure. He kept going.
Yeah. Adrenaline's powerful.
So it's like killing someone isn't the point. Getting them to stop is the point. This was a fatal shot, but it still was a bad shot because it didn't stop him. This is also, by the way, where for a long time, law enforcement went away from the 9mm and the 38 special, was because of that firefight. And so...
That's an interesting point that you make about that too, because all of the gun defenses, the handgun defenses, in Krav, one of the most important things that you do as soon as you get your hand on the firearm and the barrel is clear of you is you snap it back up to break their trigger finger.
Excellent.
Exact reason they can't keep holding onto the gun if that finger's broken. They can't fire the gun if that finger's broken. And now you can take it away from them. And that's actually another thing we also are taught in Krav as well, is you don't turn the gun around and then try to shoot them with it. This is not your gun. You don't know if it's actually loaded. You don't know if the safety's on. You don't know if it's been properly loaded. It could be jammed. It could backfire on you. You have no idea about this gun, about where it came from, about how safe it is. So what they teach us to do is if depending on your level of gun knowledge, is you can check to see if the clip is loaded, and if you want to take the chance of pointing it at them, possibly firing, or you just empty the clip.
Right.
And then you just So.
No, and I think that's very smart too, because the thing is, like you said, I'll be honest in saying, criminals aren't usually gun experts.
Yeah.
And what I always find funny is, like if you go to a gun store and say, hey, can I use a 22 for self-defense? We're all going to go, that's not a good idea unless you're fighting squirrels. But, a lot of crimes end up getting committed with one because it still works. It'll still kill somebody. It's just, the goal again isn't to kill them, it's to stop them. And if, one of the things you're trained to do is to shoot center of mass. So here, usually when people, this is very gruesome, but I've been watching way too much Forensic Files on Netflix. And I'm just shocked how many times where you see like, oh, this person murdered their spouse and they shot him in the back of the head with a 22.
Yeah. Yep. It still works. It'll do the job if you have to.
Yeah. And toxic masculinity actually is bringing up a really good point there, is that if you end up defending yourself, you could still end up in court. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think that the justice system is very fair to us. No, it isn't. And I'll give you a really famous case. This is a real case. And the reason why this horrifies me too is because it happened to a woman. It was in Massachusetts. A woman was in her home. Some guy broke into her house on the second story and basically told her what he was going to do to her before he killed her. She ended up fighting back. She got free. She ran downstairs through pretty much every room in the downstairs, stopped by her kitchen on her way to the basement and grabbed a gun out of a drawer that she had. And she pointed it at the guy and said, if you come any closer, I'm going to shoot you. Well, he didn't believe her. He charged at her. So she ran into the basement because she didn't want to shoot him. That's rational. Who really wants to do that? And she went through pretty much every room in the basement and finally said, I don't got nowhere else to go. If you come at me, I'm going to shoot you. Well, you didn't do it last time. So he stepped forward, bang, she shot him. He died. She went to jail.
Oh my God.
And here's why, and this is why those common sense gun laws bother us. Because in Massachusetts, you have a duty to retreat before you can defend yourself.
Yeah.
And there was a closet that she didn't go into.
Oh my God. What?
The next governor who came in, and I don't know which one it was, I'm being honest, felt this was a miscarriage of justice. So when he took office, he pardoned her and she was released. But she was in prison for like 4 years.
That's ridiculous. That's horrible.
And the thing is, I actually remember telling this story to someone who was not a gun person. And the first thing that he said, he kind of looked like this. And he goes, what bothers me about that is basically the justice system is saying it would have been better if she was raped and killed than if she had killed him.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I'm like, that's messed up.
Old School Jeremy brings up a really good point, and I'd actually love at some point, we have to do it at an earlier time because Ivan's on the East Coast. My friend Ivan Lee is an Olympic. He's a fencer. He went to the Olympics for
nice.
Well and good, but he's actually he's an NYPD police officer.
Nice.
And he actually trains police officers. So it'd be really interesting to have you guys together on a stream, kind of talking about all this stuff. So maybe we'll make that happen one of these days.
Yeah, I'd be up for it.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. He's a really cool guy, really fascinating. I remember it was one that because he will tell you too. He's a very responsible, upstanding citizen. He's a police officer. He trains other police officers. You can't get more responsible than that. But when he leaves his jurisdiction, when he leaves New York City, he does not carry concealed, even though he has the right to, because he's Black. And so when he travels for different tournaments, goes to different cities and whatnot, he's like, if they see a Black man with a gun, they're going to shoot me first. They'll see my badge later. You'll see my ID later. That's not going to save my life in the moment. So he doesn't carry when he travels, and he never carries in the venue when we're refereeing fencing tournaments. But this one guy who does, Russ Wilson, who's a delight, we're not exactly sure what he did during the Cold War, but theoretically was a spy and has definitely killed people. He's my taken guy. He's my parents have his phone number, and they've been informed if I'm ever abroad and they can't get a hold of me, they call Russ. But this one day, I think he was even kind of joking around. He pulled out his gun and he gave it to Ivan. He was like, if you don't take this from me, I'm going to kill somebody. So you got to hold on to this for me. And it was sort of joking. He was only going to have to do it for a little bit. But then he forgot about it. And Ivan is sitting here. We were in like Virginia or something. And so Ivan's got a gun on him all day. And he's just sweating bullets like, dear God, please somebody take this away from me. I don't want this on my person.
No, I hear you. I have a funny story about the first time I ever carried concealed right after I got my permit. One of the things, of course, you don't want to do is you don't want to shoot. You don't want to expose the firearm. You're going to make people really scared. People don't know that you're licensed. They don't know that you're trained. And they might think you're a criminal.
Yep.
And I'm being fair. I mean, if you just see somebody carrying a gun, what do you really know? Mm-hmm. And so I actually was like, I have to go to pay my rent at my apartment. This was about 15 years ago. And the first thing that happened when I walked in, I was like, oh, I'm just paying my rent check. And the person there goes, oh, hey, you're tall. Can you reach way up here and grab this for me? Uh-oh. And the first thing I'm thinking is, oh God, my shirt's going to come up. And so, but I had actually read a book by a guy named Mas Ayub, who's a former police officer. And so like one of the tricks is like, I grabbed the bottom of my shirt and I pulled it down as I lifted up so that you didn't see me do it. But at the same time, it kept it from coming up and exposing the firearm. Nice. Because obviously, this poor woman who's just, taking rent checks all day she might think I'm up to no good. The next thing I know, I've got cops at my door and, misunderstanding. And I mean, I don't blame someone. If you just see somebody carrying a gun, what do you know?
Exactly.
Which actually is why I prefer concealed carry, because if they don't know it's there, they don't get scared by it.
Yep. And they don't act irrationally because it happens to be in there. Yep.
Yeah. And believe it or not, this is actually a conversation that took place on a gun forum I'm on. Someone said, is it just me? That's how he titled it. And then the next was, or do you guys behave a whole lot better when you're carrying? And all of us were like, yeah, I really don't want a problem when I've got a gun on me. I don't want the cops to be all of a sudden, up in my business. And they're like, so what do you got the gun for?
And what is a gun forum?
Forum.
Oh, forum. I heard gun farm. I'm just like,
oh, no.
Is that like a field where people shoot?
Yeah.
Well, theoretically. No, I'm just kidding.
I did want to make one more point. It's this fun story from regarding self-defense and whatnot. Because that is something that you come up against from Krav Maga as well. And what they'll tell us in some of the situations, depending on the situation you're in, you absolutely should know your laws and know your self-defense laws and things like that. In an instance when you're not armed, especially if you're facing somebody who is armed, and where where you're at great personal risk, your laws are going to be more lenient if they say happen to die in the process of you striking them physically. But obviously, in that situation, you still want to make sure you're living. When it comes right down to it, in the moment, it's like you got to make the choice that allows you to live. Consequences be damned.
Right.
We were also taught, because there's one of the techniques with the knives. Disarming someone with a knife, which, by the way, when you talk to anybody in Krav, they'll tell you they would much rather face somebody at close range with a gun than with a knife.
Yeah, you're going to get cut, period.
Exactly. Because a gun can only hurt you if that particular part of it is pointed at you.
Right.
And knife can hurt you no matter what. And yes, you will get cut. But one of the disarming techniques also happens to involve getting their arm behind their back and effectively, while you're holding onto their hand, stabbing them with their own knives. And yeah, it's pretty brutal, but we were also unequivocally taught that if we say, why are you stabbing yourself as you do it, it's definitely just self-defense and you can't be held accountable.
Right. And
I really should save up and start taking that Krav class. This is great information.
Yeah, I love any of what I call to the point martial arts, which is judo, Japanese jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, because, there's nothing wrong with punching and kicking, but, like I was saying earlier, if somebody puts their hand on my throat, judo chokes are legal. Mm-hmm. So I know how to handle a choke. I've been choked many times in doing judo. I'm not afraid of it. If you put your hand on me, I'm going to break your fingers at least. Mm-hmm. But it is that thing. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and hope that discourages you. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to save my life.
Yep.
And then once now, if I even if I don't break a finger, if I twist your finger and you go running off, great. I'm calling the cops. I'm safe. That's all I care about.
Yep. I'm not chasing you down. If you want to leave, that's cool. One of my perspectives on it is they can't keep hurting you if they're unconscious. So
yes.
A big old elbow to their head and they go down. Cool. They are down. I can leave. I can run. That's another great part of Krav when we're getting out of these situations, out of these chokes and stuff, is assess your exits. As soon as you can extrapolate yourself from that situation and leave it and get away, cool. I've stunned them. I've done something to my assailant that's going to make them less lethal to me, and I can get out of here. Just like you said, Nike defense gone.
Yeah, I did this. This is kind of moving forward. Rear naked choke.
Yep.
Because in judo, and I'm sure Krav Maga is the same. We didn't do trachea chokes because I'm sure you're aware that can take literally minutes to get somebody to pass out. Mm-hmm. We did carotid chokes. So if you cut off the blood flow, people will go out in seconds. Mm-hmm. And for like you were saying, if I can put somebody unconscious, they wake up with a headache, and I'm not there. Great, they're fine. I'm fine, and this problem has been averted. Exactly. I always like to say my ideal. If someone were to break into my home and I had to defend myself with my firearm, the ideal way for that would be to go is they see me come around the corner with my gun and say, "Oh shit," and then run.
Yep. That's
great. The gun's done its job. I can call the cops. They can go chase him. I'm going to go close the door. I'm not doing anything else.
Exactly.
So,
all right. So we got a question from Jin Wong. Thank you for the super chat. He says, "Why shoot center mass? Why not center T zone?"
I'm going to be honest. I don't know why you couldn't shoot the T zone. I've just always been taught center mass. At least in Arizona,
like a wider.
It's harder to it's harder to miss. That's the big thing. A lot of people say, "Why don't you shoot him in the arm?" Well, this is harder to hit than this.
Yep.
And the thing is, and I'm being very honest, if you hit somebody and they're high, they're not going to feel it.
Yeah.
Even adrenaline can stop that. Mm-hmm. And another interesting story, and this actually happened here in Mesa, Arizona, which isn't too far away from the Phoenix area. I actually live in the greater Phoenix area. This guy wasn't on anything. That's the crazy part about the story I'm about to tell you guys. But this guy was in a gang, and he just made a decision he was going to make a name for himself and shoot the next cop that pulled him over.
Fun.
And so, yeah, and Lukov is right. That's why you don't go for a headshot, because this is not that easy to hit. This is easy to hit. Yep. But so this cop was carrying a Glock 21, which is a 45, which would be a big bore. So that'd be us. And they have a 13-round magazine, and he carried 2 spares. So he had 39 rounds of ammunition. He pulled the guy over, and the guy came out of came out of his car shooting at the cop. When the gunfight was over, the cop had killed the guy, and he had 3 bullets left. So he fired 36 rounds at this guy.
Wow.
And the thing is, he had already shot the guy through both lungs.
Jeez.
And I don't know if he actually hit the heart straight on, but he had at least nicked the heart, and the guy was still going. The last shot was actually a headshot because he was trying to stop him at that point.
Wow.
So when people are determined to do bad things, they can do bad things. Now, that's not every person. Not everybody's going to happen. But again, it's like if you're in the middle of trying to defend yourself, you do not know who you're facing. It could be the guy that you point a gun, and all of a sudden he gets down on his knees and cries like a baby for his life.
Yep.
Which that's ideal. You call the cops, they lead him away in handcuffs. Or it could be somebody who's crazy and on, PCP, and who knows. But it's a bigger target. Most of the time, and this is an interesting thing I didn't know until I did a little bit of research on it. Most of the time when you see somebody who's involved in a criminal, the way they get the criminal to stop isn't because they necessarily hit, his heart and his heart stops, but he's losing blood. Mm-hmm. And his blood pressure drops and he passes out.
Yep.
And sometimes they live, sometimes they don't. But the fact that, they stop, that's the whole point. They stop attacking you.
Stop. So off the general topic, but you can't help but notice all of the guitars that you got going on. Someone earlier was asking about your bass specifically. What the?
Yeah, I have a 5-string Squier bass. I actually don't play bass myself. I bought that because a friend of mine who lives down the street, and he and I went to high school together. He was my bass player in a band in high school. So I bought that because he's got 3 kids. And I asked him once, I said, "Would you ever get a 5-string?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, but it's convincing the wife to let me do it, with the kids and everything." And so I was like, actually, if you guys ever watch any guitar shows, have you ever guys watched Know Your Gear with Phil McKnight?
I have not, no.
If you check him out, he used to have McKnight Guitar Company, which is a guitar store just down the street from me.
Oh.
And so I play Freebird. I wish I could play Freebird.
Right.
But so I bought that because Phil was actually getting ready to close his store. And I was like, hey, this will be fun. Yeah, no Stairway, definitely. But I always like to say when people are like, "So does your wife ever get mad at you buying guns?" I said, "No, it's the guitars." Yeah, she's commenting right now.
Small sampling of all the guitars. How long have you played for?
About 25 years.
Nice.
This is what I actually wanted to talk to Mecca about sometime, because she's always like, oh, if you guys want to talk about pop culture and geek stuff and guitars, I'm like,
guitars, pick me. I'll let her know. I'll let her know to reach out.
And she's got the MST3K poster on her on her door.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want people to know exactly who I am, but I have an MST3K license plate.
Nice.
Because I love Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's just, I've actually had the good fortune of meeting Trace Below and Frank Conniff, who were Dr. Forrester and TV's Frank, if you've ever watched it.
Yep.
They came to town and they did a live movie riffing. And so that was a blast.
That's so fun.
That's awesome.
That sounds like a blast. Yeah, I have a guitar, a mandolin, and a violin in my home presently. Oh, and a Native American style flute.
I actually saw the guitar, the mandolin, and the violin on your last video.
Yep.
And my comment on Jeff's playing with the violin was, I tried playing violin once, and Jeff's doing way better than I did.
I've been wanting to learn ukulele and piano, so I might hit pawn shops.
There you go.
When the quarantine stuff or the shutdown is done.
Yeah, ukes are fun to play.
I want to get a piano again because I
really want to keep. See, I used to play instruments when I was like really young, but then my parents got in a lot of trouble with our building, and I had to stop, and so then I just like never kept up.
Nice.
No.
Sadly didn't keep up, but we'll music again together.
Jesse, you said you don't have an ukulele, right? Ukulele?
Mandolin.
Oh, damn. Can I just like play your stuff in your apartment?
Yep, I can show you some things too. It's not Jeff has never played any string instrument before, and you can hear right in the video about 2 simple chords on the mandolin, and he was doing it right off the bat. So mandolin's really nice. It's very simple to pick up some stuff on. So
nice. Yeah, I definitely want to get back into music because I told you I used to sing like 11 years ago at like a really good level, and now it's like my vocal cords just won't do it because it's so out of practice.
Well, and COVID, and the COVID,
all that.
Damn it, Miss Rona.
But I do have things to do. We do. My Krav Maga studio let us check out some equipment, so I have focus mitts now, and I got a big old kick shield. So I was teaching.
Oh man. That'll be fun because those are really great when I did Sage Combat to just I love those.
Ham on them. So
although I hit like someone in Sage Combat, not someone who's fighting, so you have to like retrain me out of stuff.
We will work on this. Yes. You still want to come by tomorrow and do a little bit?
Tomorrow, what time? Because I'm finally seeing Colin, and then Selena and I have to work on stuff, and I have to see my parents.
Okay. I mean, we don't have anything planned for tomorrow, so.
Okay. Let's try to figure it out because I did not like not working out today.
All right, we'll talk about it.
I'm so busy.
Luke says Jeff is off eating pie.
No, that's Ethan.
Exactly, that's what Ethan does. Jeff's right in the kitchen. He can, if I shout, I think his headphones in, but if I shout to him, he can still hear us and stuff. Oh, he's right. He's right here. People are just wondering where you were. Jeff's right over there. He's in the kitchen. He's getting a couple things ready because lately our schedule has been we've been doing dinner after both of our streams because he streams right before me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, we're eating late, so he'll usually get up and do a little bit of prep stuff. I'll try to do some prep beforehand, and all that stuff. Oh, here's a good question.
For a woman with weak hand strength, my husband has a 9mm, but I have difficulty with the slide. I highly recommend checking out Armed and Feminine on YouTube because Kelly actually did a video on if you have trouble moving the slide, how to do that. And I thought this was great because my wife does have trouble with that sometimes. So I was showing her this and she's like, oh, that's a great idea.
43.
What'd you say?
She, your wife just put a Glock 43 on the back.
Now I know what Santa feel like.
Sorry about this noise. I was an auto. I'm just putting the link for Armed and Feminine. So James Hancock. So I'm posting the link for Armed and Feminine. So if any women out there who want a female person who can talk, handguns and women, guns and women, that's a resource for you too. So
I have a question. Oh, that's cute. So you said earlier how people who are very anti-gun are very turned off by the conversation immediately and shut you down. are there any good resources for people who don't use guns to become more educated on them? Because the one reason I'm not a fan of them is mainly because people will buy them and use them without any knowledge, and then people get killed in the crossfire, as opposed to people who are educated and like understand it better. So like, what resources would you recommend for people who don't know much about guns?
That's a good question. There's a lot of good forums that I would definitely recommend. Some of the YouTube channels, such as like Armed and Feminine. The thing about, and I'll be honest in saying, a lot of the getting killed in the crossfire and stuff, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Look into who's saying that and where they're getting their information, because you'd be surprised how often they say that and it's not legit. There was I'll give you kind of an example. There was someone I was talking to actually not too long ago who was saying, well, I don't like the idea of, if somebody has a gun, they can shoot at the bad guy because then people will get killed in the crossfire. And I said, that's never happened. There's not a documented case of this. And she goes, well, the police, they said they did like a simulation and that happened. And I'm like, that's a simulation, but there isn't a documented case of this. And, I just, one of the things that can be very frustrating is, again, it's just, do you remember when Parkland happened about 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. When that happened, there was this big push in the media about how it was the 18th school shooting that year. Now, that figure came from Everytown for Gun Safety. And a lot of us, and I think Washington Post actually was on this side too, they actually looked into it, and we're all like, hold the phone. There have been 8, not 18. And a lot of the stuff they were including is there's a school zone, and 2 blocks over, which is still considered part of the school zone, there was a gang fight. And my personal favorite, and this is legit, this was on their list, was a guy who was suicidal, drove to a school parking lot. The school had been closed down for 3 or 4 years and hadn't seen a student on their campus since. He then pulled out a gun in his car and shot himself. They called that a school shooting.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of what I'm saying is it's like, and by the way, I'm also big on always fact check anything I tell you as well, because
it's stuff I've never heard. I always view this conversation how you would talk about religion or politics. It has to be something approached with an open mind.
Yes.
So this is great. Like, keep telling me more.
Right. And I mean, it's one of those things where I think the biggest problem that this conversation has is people like pushing things that have been said or things that have been done that it's not true. And I'll give you an example. There's one that the Second Amendment crowd for years was saying. I used to say it, and then I researched it, found out it wasn't true, which is that Hitler gave some speech saying, oh, we'll be the first country to have a national gun registry. And that he didn't say that. That was never said. So as soon as I found that out, I started telling everybody I knew that's not true. That's not true. Don't say that.
Because you gotta love that. It's that's one of my favorite. I mean, one of the worst things that people always do this. It's so stupid, and that's something that's happened not just with guns, but with many different instances. People love to use Nazism and the Third Reich, and like Hitler said this and did this, and the Third Reich did this, and therefore, because and some, in some cases, like you said, did not even happen, isn't even true, is some sort of weird conflation of what it is to be like, okay, so if you believe this thing or do this thing, you're literally a Nazi. And it's like, all right, guys,
let's have a rational conversation about it. And then, it's I think a lot of the tension is because people feel like they can't have that open conversation. Yeah.
Speaking of open, Zach Blackfire has a question for you.
I'm not sure what their open carry laws are in Texas. The laws change so fast that, I'm always trying to keep up on just my own state. I'm going to look in there. Zach, can you tell me specifically what's going on with that? Are they pro open carry?
I really appreciate that picture with the
bow and arrow, T-Bear's picture. Let me see. Texas. I'm pretty sure they do have open carry laws. I believe. I know Louisiana has really, or not Louisiana. Missouri has super lax open. Like anyone can just walk around open carry. All right, so open carry is legal in Texas with a Texas concealed handgun license or a permit issued by another state that Texas recognizes. When open carrying in Texas, the firearm must be in a belt or shoulder holster. If only part of the firearm is visible, then is considered being carried openly.
Gotcha.
That's the Google shorthand of it. Let's see if Zach fits in.
I have a weird question about open carry because I remember when I was in high school, someone said like, "Oh, if you have like a broadsword, that's like something you would need open carry or whatever." If you have like just a weirdly out of date weapon, that would have to be open carry, right?
If it's large enough, yeah. I mean, because there's no way to conceal it.
Yeah.
Bladed, rules for bladed weapons vary a lot more state to state as well, and like that's knife laws. How long of a knife can you carry? What type of opening device can it have or not have? Are really specific state to state. This is something I know a little more about because I own knives.
You have a sword, don't you?
I have a sword. I do have a sword. I have fencing swords, which are also considered sporting equipment, and I have several knives.
I have a wooden katana and nunchucks in my car.
I don't tell the authorities.
And boxing gloves.
So I do have a couple things. I do actually have a couple things in my apartment. I think it's technically okay if it's in your home usually, but I have a couple knives that aren't kosher for California that I got while I wasn't living here. I do also, I may or may not, you cannot confirm this, you cannot prove this, I may or may not have 2 machetes in my trunk. But that's originally living on going to Vermont, being on a farm, we would actually take those out. We'd wear it on our backs and ride our horses out into the if you're bushwhacking a trail or clearing a trail that hadn't been on for a while, you'd get off the horse, tie up the horse somewhere, and go actually use a machete for its intended purpose, whacking down underbrush. But in terms of, back to your point, I know for instance, like in Pennsylvania, unless they've changed this, any bladed weapon you can carry openly as long as it is in its proper sheath. So you can walk down the street with a battle axe as long as it's got a proper holster covering the blade. I guess they're not concerned about the dwarves taking over.
I mean, they will.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, after Moria fell, we're all screwed.
Yeah.
So
I do have another question for the two of you because Jesse, I know you're more pro-gun than I am, and obviously, John, you are as well. How do you feel about the the test to see if you're mentally stable enough to have a gun, and like your point of, you know what I'm talking about, like your point of view on that, and how you feel it should be, and your opinions on what it is now?
I'll get to that in a second. Just real quick on the open carry. I'm pro open carry. It's just a lot of folks in most places where it's not common. It can make people uncomfortable, and it also makes.
For sure. If I saw someone with a gun, I would be very nervous.
Right. And the one thing I don't like about open carry is that, let's say I'm in a Circle K and some guy comes in with intent to rob it and he sees me open carrying. Now I'm a target for him.
True.
Whereas if I'm carrying concealed and he just takes money, I could literally sit there holding onto my soda the whole time, watch the guy leave, and he never even thought of me as a threat.
Yeah. You also thank you for the super chat. You also have issues too with open carry where you might run into a situation, where you can run into situations where intent to use can be easily confused. Like you have the argument of, let's say you suspect somebody of doing something, somebody looks a little shady and whatnot. Reaching for a gun that's already in plain sight, that's already right out there, is a little easier to do and is a little less conspicuous than reaching for one that's concealed. But the flip is true too, where let's say you're open carrying, you have the right to open carry, and you're in a situation where somebody else, be it a good guy with a gun, a law enforcement officer, is suspecting you of doing something you shouldn't be, and you're reaching for your phone or something else on your person, it is much easier to try to justify, they were going for a gun and kill them wrongfully.
Well, and that's also
why if you have a gun and a cop pulls you over, you have to tell them, otherwise they're going to automatically assume you're attacking them. Yeah.
Depending on the state, that's not always true.
Really?
You don't always have to tell a cop that you're carrying. Now, my advice would be to tell them, period. And keep your hands on the steering wheel until they tell you to move them. And as a matter of fact, because I know you mentioned this about your friend who's African American and he's worried they're just going to see a black guy with a gun.
Yep.
Philando Castile, do you remember that? That happened in Minnesota, I think.
Which one was that one?
He was an African American guy. They were looking for an African American suspect who had just committed a robbery, so they pulled him over. And this cop really, I can't believe they didn't. He got off. But literally what happened is he tells the cop, he's like, I'm carrying a gun. He goes, okay, don't reach for it. He goes, I'm not going to reach for it. And he goes, no, don't reach for it. He goes, I'm not reaching for it. And he just shoots him.
Oh my God.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
And I absolutely believe that latent racism had a role in that.
Yeah.
Well, it's also partly bias as well. There's from that racism, because I don't know if you were in the chat when I mentioned 100 Humans and they were talking about like guns and doing the tests. I think out of 100 people, only one person didn't impulsively shoot the black guy with the cell phone.
Wow.
Wow.
Or something like that. It was like a scary large number.
Right. And I definitely think it played a factor. And I'm being honest in saying, and this is something that I didn't understand what the cop is. Bad guys don't tell you I have a gun.
Yeah, if someone wants to use it, they're not announcing to you, hey, by the way, there's a gun on me, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to shoot you with it in a second, but, let me draw first,
Let me do the honorable thing and let you know that I have it.
Yeah. And so...
this up here from Larry, because I want to talk about the psych evaluation.
Yeah.
And then I want to get to this one.
That's what it's called. Thank you. I don't know why I forget the names of things.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's the sleepiness.
So psych evaluations. So Sean, where do you stand on psych evaluations or, background, like mental health checks and stuff for gun owners?
Well, let me talk on what's there now that I know of,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll move to my feelings on it. First of all, for it to have your rights revoked, you have to be showing that you're a danger to yourself or others, which now, and just follow me, that's due process. Yeah. That's the Fourth Amendment, not the Second Amendment.
True.
And I think it's perfectly, and in my opinion, important. If you've been found to be mentally, I'm forgetting the word they say, shall we say, if you've been found to be mentally unstable, because I can't think of the exact term, absolutely you shouldn't be able to get a gun because you're a danger to yourself and others. But this is something that usually has to be signed off on by a professional, somebody who can evaluate you psychologically, who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Not your neighbor who says, well, that guy's crazy, you know. And I do think that that's important. As a matter of fact, the Virginia Tech shooting in the early 2000s, I think it was 06, 07, that guy was actually legally mentally unstable and wasn't supposed to get a gun. And that was a problem with the background check system.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as having to pass a psych evaluation first, here's my problem with that. Do you need a psych evaluation to exercise your First Amendment rights?
No.
Do you need a psych evaluation to be free from cruel and unusual punishment?
No, of course not.
So I'm not going to support it on the Second Amendment because we're already looking for a reason for you to not have that right. And it's usually, and I hate to say it, but there comes a point where, we want to prevent crime, but you can't assume somebody's going to do something bad because they want a gun. Yeah. Or something like that. And when people are found to be, and there are good laws in place. And one of the things I know in Arizona that I like is if you are reported to be somebody who is a danger to yourself or others, and you can have a firearm, they will fast track that information to a judge so that a judge can review it, a judge can rule on it within 24 hours, and then they can actually come to your house, remove your gun. But then the flip side of that is they did the due process to get a warrant. Yeah. But they have 30 days to prove their case that you're actually mentally incapable of being able to have a weapon, or they have to give it back. Yeah. So
that's fair.
And I think that's a good way to do it because within 24 hours, you're addressing the concern legally, not stepping on people's rights. But then for example, if you have a neighbor who just really hates your guts and they want to be like, oh yeah, he pulled a gun on me yesterday. Well, now they've got to prove that in the next 30 days, and filing a false police report is a crime.
It is.
So something like that, I'm for because it follows the due process, it respects people's rights, and it gets people who are dangerous having those weapons removed in a very quick time frame. Yeah. But the thing I don't like about red flag laws is a lot of them aren't very specific, like this one, where it's like we get the report, we investigate, we get in front of a judge within 24 hours, we know whether or not we can issue a warrant to take this person's firearms. But due process is being followed. But, to me, my neighbor saying he thinks I'm crazy is not okay.
Yeah, that's not a grounds to take action. Mm-hmm. From what it sounds like, from what I'm learning from you about the gun laws that we have that exist, is that there are a lot of there's a lot of good legislation. There's a lot of good laws that exist that are designed to, make sure that these things, that gun ownership happens safely and responsibly. And the devil's in the details. The problem is actually the execution of these laws, whether or not they're followed, how they're followed and interpreted. And then there's certain things you can't control. I mean, there's also something to consider with psychological evaluations. People are pointing out in the chat, what if your psychologist, what if the person performing the evaluation just doesn't like guns, or doesn't like you? And then you also risk things like stigmatization over mental illness, right? Let's say you're someone who has a history of depression, has suffered from depression years ago when you were, say, a teenager, tried to kill yourself, haven't had any self-harm or suicidal episodes in years and years and years, and someone says, well, you have depression, you're a danger to yourself or others because you have this, this incident on your record, you can't own a gun. Now you're just stigmatizing people, someone who just feel safe, someone who just wants to go to a range on the weekends and participate in a harmless sport, now they're being shunned out of society, they're losing their rights, and you're just stigmatizing and dehumanizing people with mental illness now.
And I think that's a real important case, and one of the reasons why I loved the late Carrie Fisher, may God rest her soul. She really fought hard for people with mental illness, because the thing is, we've stigmatized to a point today that if I say a certain thing, like if I say I have a friend who has a mental illness, immediately you get this paranoid schizophrenia thought in your head. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend who actually revealed to me a number of years ago that he has bipolar disorder.
Yep.
And he and I had been out to the range several times. And so the first thing I said to him was like, well, has that ever affected this? And he goes, no, it's a very mild case. I got put on medication and a lot of the problems I was experiencing went away. And it is one of those things where I've never been ruled as someone who is dangerous. And my psychologist does not see that as a big problem anyway. He said in all the cases he's seen, mine was one of the more milder ones. So again, this is not someone who is dangerous. This is not somebody who's a risk to society. But because someone might say, oh, well, he's got bipolar. Oh my God, he's got a gun. Oh my God. The professional has ruled on this. His doctor made a good call. He's clearly very, very much fine. There's no point in infringing on his rights.
Yeah.
But then again, and it is frustrating when you see people slip through the cracks, like with the Virginia Tech shooting, where this person. And the funny thing is,
in Vegas, like what was it? 2 years ago?
Yeah,
that was a few years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy in there was another Texas. I can't remember the name of the town. It was a little town. Some guy, he had actually been found to be mentally incompetent by the U.S. Air Force, and they never reported it to the National Registry. So that's how he ended up getting a firearm. That shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And the big thing I like to point out with Parkland too is so many things that people were saying, oh, well, we need this law or that law, or we need this law. Those things either were in place or wouldn't have affected the outcome, because the cops were called to that kid's house by their own admission something like 25 times. And the local, the local media said when they did their research, it was actually like 42. And some of them were domestic violence cases, but no charges were ever pressed. He never had anything. And from what I understood, it was because they didn't want their area to look bad. So, they don't want to report certain crimes. But this person even got reported to the FBI before the shooting. Nobody stepped in. The federal government, the local government, failed to protect those citizens, and now they're saying hand over your guns, we'll protect you. Well, you didn't.
You didn't do it when you had the chance, and you've heard multiple occasions that since we've had this uptick in school shootings and this larger coverage of shootings, you've seen multiple instances where law enforcement was alerted, people were alerted, somebody said something on the internet. We know the government has this immense ability to track our location, to track our whereabouts. It's not that hard a thing to do, to dig out someone's YouTube username and figure out where it's coming from.
Right.
You have nothing more to go on than just that. And we have multiple instances where people have left comments on YouTube videos, on Twitter, somewhere else, that showed an intent to do harm. People, if you just traced it back to the source, have a history of mental illness, and they're just not following up.
By the way, a gun store did report the Pulse nightclub shooter to the FBI. And they I don't know if that was a case where they couldn't track it down. The guy came in and said, I want to buy body armor and ammo in large amounts. I want to buy it in bulk. Can you guys do that? And they'd never seen this guy before. And he's talking on a cell phone in a foreign language. and I'm not trying to stigmatize, but when you have someone who walks in and they're yelling into their phone and they're talking a language you don't know what they're saying, and they're like, well, do you have this? No. Well, what about body armor? Do you have that? Yeah. No. Okay. It raised red flags, so they called the FBI.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and this is one thing that the media didn't want to bring up, how they were saying after the Parkland shooting, we need restrictions on magazines. No more high capacity magazines. He didn't use high capacity magazines. He had 10-round magazines because he couldn't get high capacity magazines. He just brought more magazines.
Barrel, I'm assuming.
What's that?
High capacity magazines. Is that like a type of barrel?
The magazine is what holds the ammunition in the gun.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he the guy with the bump stock and everyone was like, oh, we got to make, but it was like, what he had done, the modification he had done to his gun was already illegal. There was one instance where it was where somebody, the people were trying to lobby to change laws about something to do with the bump stock, and what he had used, the modification he had done to his gun was already something that was illegal. So it was like, dude, already there, what you're proposing isn't actually going to stop somebody from illegally modifying their weapon. So.
Right. And see, in Parkland, it's like he wasn't using high capacity magazines, which would have been Hadass. The standard capacity for an AR-15 when you buy one is a 30-round magazine. I'll be honest in saying that's standard because that's what comes with it. But people consider anything over 10 rounds to be a high capacity magazine.
Sorry, ATEC San, thank you. High capacity equals lots of bullets, Hadass.
Yes.
Yeah. But he did what most criminals during the assault weapons ban did, because they made all magazines over 10 rounds were illegal, unless they had been made prior to the ban. And basically what the criminals did is they just brought more magazines. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And people are like, well, then they should only have revolvers. Have you ever seen a professional reload?
Oh, they do that so fast. And there are also things that are made to speed load revolvers.
Yeah. There is a guy named Jerry Michalik. If you want to look him up, he's a professional competitive shooter. He's an old fella now. Wonderful guy, great guy. He tells some great stories that are just, imagine your grandpa is like a professional target shooter, and that's what he's like. But he set the world record for shooting with a revolver. He pulled off 12 shots in 3 seconds.
Wow.
2.99 seconds. And just to give you an idea,
bullets can you put in a thing on the revolver?
Most revolvers are 6
shooters.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
Most of them, not all of them. A lot of the big bores I shoot are 5 because it's just too big. You can't fit a 6th one in there. But he had a 45 ACP, which is, let me hold that up. That's this bullet. Which is actually usually in autos. They don't kick too bad. They've been around since 1905. The 1911 of great fame was actually chambered in it. We carried it as a military sidearm up until I think 86 when we switched to the Beretta. And then we just switched in 2017 over to the SIG P320. But those are both 9s. Anyway, so he's shooting, and literally you hear the beep that he can hear through his hearing protection, and it's literally 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 like that. And the actual time was 2.99 seconds. He actually unloaded his revolver, reloaded, and got back into it. I have a Glock 21 that carries 13 rounds. I cannot get through 12 rounds that fast in a gun that I don't even have to reload.
There you go.
So
just chat a little bit. First of all, thank you for answering my question. The bump stock guy was the Vegas shooter, apparently.
Yeah.
So thank you, Driving Mayhem, for that answer. RC Scott, this is Hadass, my good friend Hadass. She's been my correspondent for my live shows lately. And this is Sean of the channel Go Big Bore or Go Home. I'm going to pull your channel back. I'll make sure I get the link out to the peoples. Some more. So definitely subscribe to him if you have any interest in guns and watching some big bores get fired off even into pumpkins. Great channel, got some great videos on there. Obviously a great guy. And I highlighted this chat because what mental illness is Pandas? Apparently it's severe and serious, but it just sounds so gosh darn cute.
I got to be honest, that's new to me too.
I don't know what Pandas is. So Mando Mark, if you can fill us in on what that acronym is for. Somebody was like, we don't have to get off on a whole mental illness tangent. Someone was sort of glibly saying, I don't think you should give someone with ADHD a gun. Not a lot of people misunderstand adult ADHD a lot. I know a lot of people who've been diagnosed with it. An adult person with ADHD is not like a kid bouncing off the walls going, oh, look, a squirrel. Oh, look, a gun. They're regular people who know not to, shoot people in the head.
Can I say something about ADHD after you finish?
Go for it. That's what I want to say.
Okay. So years ago when I was in college, many years ago, I was in a psychology class, and my teacher was telling us about this book about how someone wrote about how people in like prehistoric times, or like, as you know, humans were evolving and all that, almost all of them had ADHD, because what is it? It's basically things grabbing your attention. If you hear one little rustle in the leaves, like it's gonna have your attention. You'll know that's danger. So I feel like ADHD and gun would not be the
issue there
one, I feel, because if the person isn't trigger happy, it's just their attention going towards towards danger.
And people with ADHD, when you're in an adrenaline situation, your brain focuses differently, and it overcomes some of that hyperstimulation in an adrenaline centered situation, especially if you're someone who owns a gun, who is training to use a gun.
I don't even remember the name of the book, because someone with ADHD actually wrote it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I wish I remembered. I'm sorry, I don't.
All right, so do we get an answer for what pandas is? Pandas. What's pandas? I don't have an answer yet for pandas. Mandamark, if you're still here, someone tell me what pandas is. Anyway, I do want to address. So Larry made the statement. You hear this a lot from pro 2A people, which is the right shall not be infringed. Therefore, any law whatsoever, any sort of law that exists that tells you what type of thing you can have, what type of ammo you can have, what type of modification, anything, any law that dictates any type of gun you can or can't have or something is an infringement of that and should not happen.
Merck responded.
Pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections. Whoa. Okay. So basically, let me interpret. So pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections is basically strep. You can get a very severe fever from strep, scarlet fever and whatnot, and that can have a lasting and damaging effect on your brain development, basically. So
I think that
is a streptococcal infection is strep throat. So it's basically a brain injury, effectively a medical brain injury secondary to a strep infection. Cool. I didn't know that. Now I know.
I think that would again be something that would have to be diagnosed by a professional. If somebody's a threat, they're going to know.
Yeah.
And people forget that, people who are trained and they're professionals, if you have something like, let's say you have ADHD, when you walk in the room within a few minutes, they know. Mm-hmm. They know what to look for. They know what the signs are. We as average people don't. And, that's why I always say, the professionals are best to try and leave it there with.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. As far as the, any law restricting, I get a little bit, we've got to be reasonable. If that, I do think there's a lot of laws that I think that are proposed that people say are common sense, but do they really have an effect on criminals? Do they have an effect on stopping crime? Like I said, with Parkland, people are saying no high capacity magazines. And they were also making the comment of let's have waiting periods. He bought the gun like a year before he committed the crime. Neither one of those laws that were being proposed would have stopped the crime that happened. And I do think that's one of the problems that a lot of us in the 2A community have, is we get these laws where things are not actually doing anything. People feel good about passing them. That's why we call them feel-good laws. Yeah. But for example, when people are upset about the assault weapons ban, I actually have the number. The reason why it didn't get passed again is it affected 0.1% of crime.
Huh.
And it inconvenienced the rest of us. So all of us who were not breaking laws and doing no harm and never had any intention of doing harm and were responsible, we were out. Meanwhile, the criminals were pretty much unaffected.
Yep.
So, that's where we're, for me at least, it's like, I don't want to say I'm okay with, let's restrict this and that. But, if you have a law that's actually going to do something against the criminals and stop people from committing crimes, like you said, we have a lot of laws, they're not being enforced right. I'd love it if somebody said, we have the laws in place, let's make them work. Mm-hmm. I'm all for that. We have, people committing crimes, let's make harsher punishments. I'm for that, because we're punishing people who are doing bad things.
Yep. Yeah.
But when it comes to certain laws, like the one thing I always think is interesting, and I'm going to kind of do an illustration here. is hollow points. People are always like, oh, well, hollow points are just so you can tear someone up. And it's like, no, not really. And just so you can see Hadass, this is what we call a full metal jacket. It's just a round bullet. It's lead. Okay. It's covered with a copper jacket.
Okay.
And then a hollow point is something like this, where as you can see, it's hollow in the center.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is really, the way we refer to it is, it's an expanding bullet. When it hits the target, it will actually...
that like this hole inside is small, but then outside it's like a giant hole.
Well, not so much. It expands and it opens up, and it will actually make a bigger wound cavity. But the big thing is, if I hit you, if you're assaulting me and I hit you with this, it's going to go right through you and hit the person behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the hollow point that expands is going to dump its energy into the assailant's body, and typically, not always, but it's going to have a better chance of stopping in that person. So it's actually also a very big safety issue, because...
How big do they expand?
It depends on where it started from. And actually, this is something that's been very big in the last, say, 15 years, is the expansion has been more consistent, which is why the 9mm is now in favor again with law enforcement. That, and it's cheaper. So, got to save money. But it's going to depend. I've never actually measured on like a 9mm. I know like on a 45, it can go from being a 0.45 inch. That's why it's 45. And I've seen them expand to like 0.7. So it can go quite a bit, almost half again its size.
Right.
Yeah. Like it'll be like 50% bigger. But the idea is, if this person's trying to cause you bodily harm, we'll just use this person's coming at you with a knife. You shoot them. You want to hit them. You don't want to hit the person behind them.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that even if you miss somebody, if you have an expanding bullet, it's more likely to hit, and it's going to deform. It's going to lose energy faster. As a matter of fact, with the 45, these have a very good reputation for bouncing around, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
People do. Woo.
So a lot of times people are like, it's kind of like people say, oh, well, the only reason why you would ever design a gun is to kill somebody. Well, let me introduce you to a guy named Elgin Gates. His whole thing, he was a professional silhouette shooter, which silhouette pistol shooting is you actually and this is international, so it's 25 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, and 200 meters, and you have to shoot a silhouette made of steel of a farm animal and knock it over. He wasn't satisfied with the calibers he was using, so he developed 4 different calibers, all called Super Magnums. And the whole point of this cartridge was to knock down a steel target. It was not designed to shoot at a person. It actually has been used to hunt, but it wasn't designed for that. It was designed for a competition. Mm-hmm. So, and this is where I say, people have trouble having the conversation, because they're like, oh, well, you just want a gun so you can kill somebody. That's all it's for. That's really not fair. And it's like, it's like saying that, well, to your point, Jesse, it's like, oh, you just want to be like the Nazis and take all our guns.
Yeah.
No, I think people who don't like guns are worried about safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is,
I agree. Yeah.
My worry.
So,
yeah. Because you look at things like so many more people are killed by the percentage of people who drive irresponsibly and cause death or injury versus the percentage of people who drive. You look at that.
Yeah.
Percentage of people who irresponsibly use their firearms versus the percentage of people who responsibly do. And we don't take away cars from everybody. We don't want to take away everyone's car because a few people don't use them responsibly, right, even though that causes a ridiculous number of deaths in the country every year from drunk driving, irresponsible driving, etc., distracted driving, So it's a similar kind of argument.
And that's kind of a good point too, is that I actually was talking to someone when they were saying, well, how many people every year are killed by guns? And I said, well, are we talking from an accidental discharge? And they're like, no, all total, it's got to be a huge number. And I don't remember what the number was, but I actually went and looked it up, and I talked back to her and I said, well, here's the thing. When you look at it, it was something like 12, 13, 14,000 in the whole of the United States for a year. It was like 2017. And when I looked at alcohol related deaths, it was like 6.7 times higher.
Yeah.
And I said, how can you sit here and tell me that you don't want me to have a firearm because it's a risk to people getting killed, but you want your alcohol to drink as recreation when that's killing more people?
Exactly.
Now we're being selective about safety and what's a danger to society. And I'll be honest in saying, I don't want alcohol to be made illegal. And we tried that, and that worked out really poorly.
And I mean, people point to prohibition too as an example of what would happen if you did say take everyone's guns, which is like, look, they took away everyone's alcohol and people just made their own alcohol. They just did it illegally. It became the jumping off point for widespread organized crime, for the national crime syndicate in this country. It is the reason why we have such a powerful, why for so many years we had such a powerful mafia presence in the U.S. was because they were all able to organize behind bootlegging liquor.
Right.
So So what do you say? We have R.C. Scott, and we have Larry, who both feel any law is an infringement, and so let's talk about that. We'll definitely have you back on and continue this. There's definitely more to talk about. We are getting a little.
I love how educational this is, and that you have the show and tell.
Yeah,
this is great.
So we're definitely have you back on for more, but we'll get to this last topic. I do want to do at least one round of Mad Libs.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we can't have you on and not do the Mad Libs. You've been such a great audience member, so we gotta.
Oh, thank you.
What's the name of your channel? I want to follow it just so I can
It's Go Big Boar or Go Home.
Oh, like the actual name. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yep. And the reason why for the channel is, by the way, the funny thing is the term big bore is just referring to the bore of the barrel of how big the bullet is going to be. There's no hard and fast rule on what is and what is not. Most people will consider it realistically like 44 caliber and up. I've met a number of authors who actually are 41 and up. For the purpose of the channel, I said, 40 caliber is a good clean line. There's nothing between a 38 and a 40. So that's a clean line. So anything 40 caliber and up, we talk about. And for us, it's fun because I try and educate as we go. So when people say, well, I wonder where the 44 Magnum came from. Well, I can tell you that. And actually I like to show this cartridge because if you want to see, this is a funny story, but at the year 2000, Smith & Wesson got a new CEO who started saying, we're losing money. Why, all these other companies are making AR rifles. Why aren't we doing it? Well, we don't do that. What do you mean we don't do that? We're doing it now. Why aren't we making 1911s? We're actually building them for Kimber, which is another gun company. And they're like, well, we don't do that. And he's like, this is ridiculous. We do that now. And one of the other things he said was back when Dirty Harry came out in 1971, the whole selling point was that he was carrying the world's most powerful handgun, the 44 Magnum. Why aren't we making the most powerful handgun in the world? So this is the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum.
Wow.
Yeah. And by comparison, let me grab my 44 here for you so you can see the two together. 44 is on the right there.
Wow.
I always like to joke about this cartridge because the thing is, they'll say, well, you can hunt with it. You can, but the thing is, here's a different 50 caliber. This one's called 500 JRH. You can see it's a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a less powerful version of it. And the thing is, having shot the 500 Smith & Wesson and having one, if you like catching a baseball bat with your hands, it's fun. But it's challenged. But that was one that was just literally created so that they could take back their throne. And I really doubt anybody's ever going to go bigger than that, because if you go bigger than that in a handgun, it's
just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous because, well, the laws also state if it's over 0.500 inch bore, it's considered a destructive device. And then you have to register it, and you have to go through a very thorough background check, and it's a long, lengthy process. So nobody wants to do that. As a matter of fact, there's a funny story, and I won't get into it now, about the Desert Eagle, about why they changed some things about their 50 caliber that they did, because they literally ran into that. They're like, we're going to do this. And then the ATF looked at the gun and were like, this is a destructive device. So no, you're not. So they had to go back and change it.
Before I was told it was a gun, I thought you meant boar like the animal. Like you just liked boars.
Big boar.
No, so
I just share it really quick in the chat. Mano Merc is the person who brought up the pandas and told us what it is. And so as cute as the thing as it says, it is not cute at all, obviously, and he does have a relative who suffers from it. So I just want to extend my sympathies. That sounds really difficult. But he just said, I'm actually writing an article about it if you want to know more, but it's not for the faint of heart. I would like to know more, Mando Merc.
Me too.
I want to read that article.
So definitely shoot that. Send me an email, me.mindlessentertainment, a link. You can send
it. Yes, send me that.
At gmail.com when it's finished. And I would love to read. I'd love to discuss it on this channel too, because damn. I also definitely want to have the three of you guys back again, maybe sometime next week, and we can do like since Hadassah, you've never shot a gun, right?
No, although I am curious about that. If it's in a safe environment, I would be so down to try.
We could definitely talk. Maybe we'll talk about a little bit like you can walk
22.
So maybe next week, if you have time, we'll have you back on and we'll do like a tutorial, like an education. Here's first time users, a little bit of info, what to expect, what to do, what to look for, what to fire, that kind of stuff. Because it'd be really fun. And I think I'm getting a lot out of this. I know more than, I don't know, the average person. I definitely know more than somebody who doesn't know anything about it, but I'm by no means an expert. Obviously you are. So it's fantastic to have you here. And we definitely have a lot of experts in the chat. So before we get to the mouth of this, everyone, so I just want to hear everyone's take as quickly, and we can get more into this since we're gonna have Sean back on. We can debate this topic at greater length next time. But everyone's take on the statement in and of itself: the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. What does that mean to you in terms of what a government is allowable within the oh,
I love Beth.
Beth is the best. She's already got a Mad Lib going. Hadass, what does that mean to you? The right to bear arms shall not be infringed.
When I hear that being said, I think for me, it sounds like people want like the same laws they've always had or more relaxed. The way I view it is, if background checks are doing what they're supposed to do, then I just want better background checks. I'd be
good with that.
Nice,
a better system that works better.
Yeah, I want a better system. I'm not saying take someone's rights away. I'm saying make it the system work better.
Yeah, and you'll find most people in 2A are like, yeah, no, if someone has a criminal background, we don't want them having a gun either.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's and when I say to people, when people talk about things like shall not be infringed, they take that as an absolute. You can't infringe any part of it, any bit of it at all. There's a lot of different ways to interpret that. R.C. Scott's point is it's not about Second Amendment, it's about personal property rights. You're sure, but like you also can't have a nuke, in your house. That's that. I don't think that's a.
Oh shit! I better get rid of mine. No, I'm just kidding.
As long as it's not armed, I guess we're okay. And so for me, that whole shall not be infringed, and you look at the writing of it and say it's absolute. Well, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. You could look at it one of two ways. You could say any infraction on in the owning of any type of arms at all, period, is affecting your amendment rights. Or you could do the flip of that and say, if you're allowed to own any arm at all, any type of arms at all, then your right hasn't been infringed. You're allowed to bear arms. You can carry your little pistol. You can carry your little 22 pistol. There, you have a gun. No one has infringed your right to have a gun. It doesn't say, the right to bear any type of arms shall not be infringed. It just is the right to bear it. So you have something that counts as arms. You have your right. It's been fulfilled. You could look at it both of those ways. I'm not one of the founding fathers. I didn't write that damn document. I can't say which way it was intended, in the Bill of Rights. Now, there's also the consideration. Additionally, last thing I'll say is at the time that was written, guns did not look like what guns look like now. So. And we've reinterpreted many, many different statements. If we took the Constitution at face value and didn't amend it and reinterpret it and change it, Black people would still count as 3/5 of a person.
Right. Thank God that's gone.
God, sorry, my fire alarm just went off. Hold on one second.
Jeff, did Jeff burn something?
Is Jeff upset because he's not part of this conversation?
I don't know. I hope not.
Starting a fire.
Yeah. No, and one of the things, though, that I do like to bring up with people saying, well, and she brought this up, and this is a good point. People need to keep in mind that when the forefathers wrote it, the way we read it today isn't how they meant it. Like, for example, when they said, well, being that a militia is necessary to the preservation of a free state, which, by the way, that means the United States of America, Arizona, those are free states. They were referring to militia as it meant in the day, which was all... now I'm just giving you what it was back then and how we would interpret it in our modern times. But back then, that was all white men from 18 to 45. That's how they meant that. That's what it meant. You were a part of militia in the United States of America if you were a white male between the ages of 18 and 45. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's really, I look at it as if you're an adult, because I don't think gender or skin color has anything to do with it, naturally. So for me, I kind of say when people are like, well, you're not part of the militia, I'm like, no, that's not there. But the other thing is, if you're going to tell me why I can't have something, I need a good reason why you're telling me I can't have it. Obviously, there's a good reason why I can't have a tank. You know, we can agree with that. And why we're not all allowed to have grenade launchers. And I'm just admitting, can you imagine if everybody could just, walk in a store, buy a grenade launcher after a quick background check, and then, the desert is probably just filled with big, craters everywhere.
Oh God, that was very destructive.
Yeah, but when people say to me, well, they didn't envision an AR-15, well, they also didn't envision the fact that we're having a conversation in 2 different states right now. If the Second Amendment ends at muskets, then you don't get TV, radio, internet, your phone, then your First Amendment rights don't apply there either.
Exactly.
It's the same line of thinking. So when it comes to things being limited, it's just, for me, there has to be a good reason why. And when it comes to how limited, again, like we were talking about, like, obviously it's not going to be legal to own a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
I don't think we even need to discuss why that's an issue. Yeah. But for example, and this is another state to state thing, because gun law is always very widely from state to state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in some states, it is completely and utterly illegal to own a fully automatic weapon. Mm-hmm. In other states, you just have to follow the federal laws, but they're very strict. It has to have been made prior to 1986. You have to pay a $200 tax stamp. You have to be background checked by the FBI and the ATF for about 6 months. It's a long time. They do very thorough checks. And you actually have to surrender your Fourth Amendment rights to that firearm. So what that means is, like, right now, if a cop showed up at my door and said, I know you have a Glock 21 and a Glock 21 was just used in a crime, I want to see your gun. My response is, what's your probable cause? You can't just come in and demand to see my gun because I have it.
Sure.
But if I have a full automatic, let's say I own an Uzi,
yeah,
they can come in and say, I want to see it right now. Because of the way those laws work, I have to produce it right then and there, period. No questions asked. And here's the other catch-22, because people are like, well, why is that legal? I mean, anybody can just buy an Uzi? Well, if you got 10 grand, sure. Yeah. Because they've all been made before 1986, and they're extremely expensive because
my dad had to use one when he was in the military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's
it's the only gun he's ever told me about.
He had an Uzi. Well, he was in the Israeli military, right?
Yeah, both my parents were.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, actually, men and women. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, that's one thing I love about having Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. We actually have a former soldier playing Wonder Woman. That's badass.
I met her. She's really sweet.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she. The area where I work, there are a lot of celebrities that come around. She's very nice. She just said hello.
Mm-hmm.
Aw.
Yeah.
So it is that time. We're bringing Jeff back because he does not want to miss one exciting episode of Star Wars Mad Libs.
May I ask one quick question of Jeff, though?
Yes.
I've been trying to find out. I can't figure out, where did Party Boob start?
One of our listeners just said, did you know that booby trap spelled backwards was party boob? And it just, that's it. That's where it comes from.
I love it.
I do too. It's one of my favorite things to scream on air. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
So our first suggestion from the night, it's a noun from Beth Digu. It's Frankfurter. So thank you, Beth, for getting us kicked off. Tonight, guys, we are writing How to Use a Lightsaber by Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's our
You light up. Gal Gadot is gorgeous, but not as beautiful as Jeff.
Oh, thanks, Luca. I agree. He is beautiful. So in the chat, first of all, if you haven't pressed the like button, make sure you do it. If you haven't checked out Go Big Boar or Go Home, that's Sean's channel, make sure you do subscribe.
I follow you to watch and learn.
Awesome videos. It's definitely really fascinating. And I want to talk more because you have my favorite gun, which is a Ruger Blackhawk. So
yeah, I noticed that in your channel. You had the 2 Ruger Blackhawks, which are awesome.
It is my very favorite gun. So, given my limited knowledge, and the limited number of guns I have fired, I have shot when it was exciting. I felt like a cowboy. But all right, so the way it works is I'm going to go around. So we've got Jeff, Hadass, and Sean participating, and you guys are participating as well. So every 4th word will be you, chat, and I'll give you a heads up before we get there, so you have an opportunity to contribute as well. We'll just pick one arbitrarily from the chat. If you do super chat a word, we will find the next place that we can plug it in, and plug it in. It supersedes all of the suggestions. So chat, the first thing you're on the hook for is a plural noun. And Sean, you're going to get us started also with a plural noun.
Ants. Like the insect.
Awesome.
I don't know why that just came to mind.
I hate them so much.
All right, and Hadass, you're going to give us a verb.
Assault.
Awesome. All right. And Jeff, you get a plural noun?
Artichokes.
With
Jeff,
butter or without?
Always with butter. Come on.
I love
So
artichokes.
let's see if we get a plural noun from the chat here. This is such a wonder. I don't even remember how this started. It just happened. It
was your stream. You just picked up the book one day.
I know. I was like, wait, I have this. Why did I even?
Oh yeah, because we were talking about playing games.
Butt plugs, condoms,
butt plugs,
vibrators,
you know what? Let's go with butt plugs.
wieners.
Why not? All right, chat. The next thing we're gonna need from you is a noun, so a non-plural one, but we will take some of your plurals into account since they're still rolling in here. We can always depluralize them. And Sean, another plural noun from you.
Another plural noun. Okay, let's be a little more fun with this. How adult am I allowed to go on this?
X-rated is fine.
Oh, okay.
I just put butt plugs in here. Come on.
Okay, cock rings.
Oh God, this is so perfect. Oh my God, this is incredible. All right, Hadass, you get an adjective.
Ooh.
Oh, hi, Dr. Alex. Welcome. Oh, I also saw Midnight Luna was in the chat earlier. I wanted to say hi to her. She's a longtime listener, and she's a lot of fun. She's the one I was doing Meant to Offend, and she's disabled, and she was like, "Do a Meant to Offend about disabled people," and I was like,
The one with the wheelchair, right?
"Yeah."
Oh, I remember you telling me about that, but I never saw it.
She is so cool. All right, so Hadass, an adjective, please.
Is gingerly an adjective?
Ginger would be.
Ginger.
Soulless?
There you go. I was thinking ginger in the sense of sensitive, but you know, whatever. Jeff,
I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. Our quarterback is a red-haired guy, so
Andy Dalton.
What's that?
Andy Dalton.
Andy
right?
Dalton.
Yeah, he's had as many playoff victories as souls.
0.
Dude, I used to live about 10 minutes from the stadium, so
Midnight Luna,
Oh, okay.
you are cool. I love you.
And last season just hurt. I just was like, I can't watch.
that's why I moved. It's the only reason I moved.
I was an Eagles fan because of me. So
Nice.
What's my word? What's my
so wait on yeah, you get a plural noun. Sorry,
plural
you get a
noun?
plural noun.
Sanctuaries.
Okay.
Poetic. I like it.
And we have some nouns from the chat. Toilet paper, that's definitely a good one. We had hacksaw, pickles, chicken.
Hacksaw.
Football, hacksaw. Hadass votes for hacksaw.
I like that.
I think we had chicken in another one, didn't we? Oh, is that what chickens was our unit of price?
Yeah.
In a previous one.
All
All right, so chat, keep them coming because we're gonna need another noun from you, and Sean will also need a noun from you.
Okay. Let's see. Bourbon.
Ooh, yes.
Toxic Masculinity, that's a good song.
All right, Hadass, a noun, please.
Glasses.
All right.
Representing my 4 eyes. Actually, can you change mine to ferrets? Because I like Beth's better.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
Fair
you,
it is. All right, Jeff, a verb ending in ing.
Fucking.
We're fully in the toilet tonight. All right. Meth. I like that. All caps. We'll use meth. Whips. We do had 2 for whips, though.
There's another soundbite we need, Jeff. We'll use meth.
We'll use meth.
If you use whips, can you pronounce the H just to upset some people?
Whip.
Whips.
Whip.
That will be all, though. Yeah, Jeff's going to get a noun, so if he wants to use whip, he can. Sean, you get a verb?
Ooh, Let's see. Yeah, let's go COVID style. Coughing.
All right. So,
COVID style. I can't.
Did you guys hear about the guy who was coughing outside a gas station? And so some guy approached him and told him not to cough without covering his mouth. And it ended with the guy who was coughing shooting at him.
Oh, shit.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I was like, Jesus Christ.
People,
I
man.
mean, if you're going to attack someone in this day and age, you could cough on them.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to shoot them. Let the virus kill them slowly. Oh, God.
All right, an adverb, please.
Adverb. Boisterously.
Boisterously. Dig it. We're learning so much about English. All right, and Jeff finishes off with a noun.
Salmon.
Salmon.
Okay, guys. So, you ready to learn how to use a lightsaber by Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah, indeed I am.
All right. As a Jedi Master, I've taught some of the most talented ants in the galaxy how to assault with a lightsaber.
That actually works.
Here are some tips for you. The most important thing to remember when you're wielding one of these precise artichokes is to trust your butt plugs. This way you'll be able to sense your enemy's cock rings before it's too late. A lightsaber is not only for use in Jedi to Frankfurter combat. It also comes in handy if you find yourself in a ginger spot. For example, it can burn through metal sanctuaries. A convenient trick to have up your hacksaw. If the Emperor detains you in a holding bourbon. While a lightsaber is a beautiful ferret, be careful if you see someone fucking with the red one. This meth works for the dark side. Finally, the most important part of learning how to cough with a lightsaber. When you're in battle, fight boisterously. May the salmon be with you always.
When in battle, fight boisterously. I like that.
Oh,
May the salmon be with you.
May the salmon be with you.
We don't have any salmon. Damn it.
Trust your butt plug, because that way you'll be able to sense your enemy's cock rings.
True words have never been spoken on this channel, folks.
Oh, man. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. We had a super long stream. That's always, Sean, in case you're sitting there wondering how you did on your first live stream. The fact that we went way longer than usual is always a very good sign.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being on. We'll talk about maybe next week getting going back together, and Sean's going to do a basic, like, how to guns and stuff.
How to gun.
How to gun. He's going to talk to us about how to gun. And we're very excited.
What was that, Hadass? I'm sorry.
How to gun safely.
Yes.
How to gun safely.
How not to shoot anything you didn't intend to shoot.
That's another one that I was always told too. Do not point your gun at something unless you intend to shoot it.
Well, that was also the same thing with stage combat. Is like you were never supposed to look at the area you're supposed to look like you're hitting. You have to look next to it so you don't actually hit it.
Exactly, because your body will go where your eyes go. Same thing. You know, bullets and guns. The bullet will generally go where the gun is pointing, usually, unless you're doing something wrong. So, all right, guys. Anything else you want to say, Sean, before we call it for the night?
No, it's just been a blast. Thanks so much for having me. And anytime you want me back on, let me know.
It has been absolutely thrilling. It's been absolutely wonderful. Hadass, thanks for coming on again.
Of course.
And why don't y'all do Friday streams? Because we like to have a day off sometimes, but maybe we will.
Yeah, we might make Monday that day.
We've been talking about taking Monday off and doing some Friday streams and whatnot. But anyway, it was great. It was a wonderful show. It was a great stream. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you press the like button. Make sure you subscribe to Go Big Boar or Go Home. Thank you, Sean, for being here. And au revoir. I guess we got to do our Coronicus, don't we?
Coronicus.
Before Hadass leaves.